Mic check 1 2 1 2. Can anybody in the chat hear me? Can anybody in the chat hear me? Mic check 1 2 1 2. All right. Yeah, my laptop just crashed on me as soon as I joined the Hangout. Very weird. So I had to reboot and try to get back on. It's a good thing the Hangouts was still going because if not, we would have to start a whole new Hangout. Um, yeah, sorry for being late. I'm not sure what's going on with YouTube. There's a whole lot of issues with Hangouts. Yeah, sorry for being late.
Mic
I'm not
check.
sure what's going on with YouTube. There's a whole lot of issues with Hangouts. Yeah, sorry for being late. You might have to stop your feed, Dollar.
I think that's more than a mic. Nick, I got to. I guess everything's working on this end.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Something's going on with Hangouts.
Well, go ahead
It
and
crashed
reboot,
on me.
man. You need to reboot?
I already did.
Oh, okay.
I already did that. It crashed on me. So we're here now, man. So yeah. What's going on, Chaos Rain? Richard, Victor, Steve Technologies. What's going on? Yeah. Very weird, man. Very very weird. My computer got real slow and then it just crashed on me. So um we're good now, though. The docket is in the description beneath the video. Hit the like button if you have not already done so. Share the video if possible. And we can get started, man. Bulletooth Tone and Terrence, what's going on? Just as an FYI, we are not certified financial planners. If you want a CFP, go to cfp.net and look up one in your area. We don't give out financial advice here. Yeah, I see people hitting the like button, so that means it's time to get started. All right, let me share my
Yeah, security specialist. How does your computer crash?
Well, it's not my computer. It's Hangouts. Hangouts brought the when you're using the Chromebook, what happens here is everything stops because of Google's products. So if Hangouts is a Google product, everything else stops too.
Ah, okay. Priority.
Yeah, it's for whatever reason it seems to do that.
Right.
All right, let me get started, man. First item on the docket is from Forbes.com. Harlem Capital, a backer of minority and women-run companies, wins investment from $108 billion in assets, TPG. 3 weeks ago, Jared Tingle and Henry Pierre Jacques were celebrating alongside other graduates of Harvard Business School class of 2019 and soaking in the advice of their commemorance speaker, billionaire Michael Bloomberg, who lectured on restoring faith in the promise of America and the future of the American dream. Tingle, 28, and Pierre Jacques, 27, are already hard at work trying to do just that by opening the gears of capitalism to a broader swath of people in this country. Their firm, Harlem Capital, is trying to funnel venture and private capital towards minority and women entrepreneurs who have received what may be as little as 3% of the capital tidal wave of investment cash aimed at startups. Harlem Capital plans to back 1,000 young companies with diverse founders over the next 2 decades, opening these channels of private capital to those who are often overlooked by traditional investors. Those are the brothers right there, picture of them. Just weeks after graduation, Tingle and Pierre Jacques and Harlem Capital's two other co-founders, Brandon Bryant and John Henry, are making a big breakthrough. TPG Capital, the $108 $1 billion in asset private equity giant, co-founded by billionaires David Bounderman and Jim Coulter, is taking a minority stake in Harlem Capital and becoming a limited partner in its first pooled fund. TPG's investment will give Harlem Capital growth funding as Tingle and Pierre Jacques expand the firm and continue investing their first fund. It also is expected to open deep ties between the two firms. TPG is creating a Harlem Council inside the firm, which is expected to offer resources and investing expertise to Harlem Capital. If you look at the amount of capital that has been available for minority or women entrepreneurs, the data shows they are dramatically underfunded. John Winklereid, co-CEO of TPG, tells Forbes, most of the funding dollars have gone to white males who are starting companies. With Harlem Capital as a partner, TPG plans to increase the diversity of its employee base inside its portfolio companies. Over half of TPG's 2019 and 2020 associate classes identify as women or minorities or both. And the firm has added 35 women to its company board. TPG also stands to benefit financially. Winklereid believes the diverse network Tingle and Pierre Jacques have built at Harlem Capital will yield new investment opportunities for TPG. This isn't about just making an investment, he says. Buying a stake in the general partnership will give them working capital to invest in the business. By investing in in HPC's first fund, Winklereid notes, we are also putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to their investing. Winklereid declined to disclose the size of TPG's commitment. Harlem Capital's inaugural fund has invested in companies like AuntFlow, a women's hygiene startup, Paladin, a platform for legal teams to manage pro bono cases, and Moving Analytics, which is aimed at cardiac health and prevention. TPG has made other investments off of its balance sheet, including Circle Up, a financial technology firm aimed at putting a spotlight on promising consumer brand startups, and NewQuest, a firm focused on secondary private equity fund investments in Asia. These deals underscore the new ways in which even the world's most connected investment firms are looking to uncover investment opportunities. We are attracted to the idea of expanding our own network and seeing opportunities that come from the partnership that we would not otherwise see, Winklereid says. We want to be early in participating in these new channels of deal sourcing opportunities. Private equity giants are also becoming increasingly attuned to diversity and pushing hard to groom internal talent of different races and gender. There's only two genders. TPG isn't alone in seeing promise in Harlem Capital's unique model. All four of its co-founders made Forbes 2019 class of 30 under 30 in social entrepreneurship. Harlem Capital was on TPG's radar after being introduced by Enelu Vasquez Ubari, its chief human resources officer, who was poached from Goldman Sachs a year ago. So I don't want to read the rest of this stuff because I think everybody should get the gist of this. And I'll leave this picture up right here because that's the brothers that are involved in this. You have anything you want to add to this, Dollar?
No, nothing but just to say that, that's my primary point, that we need to have a more mature relationship with capitalism, because you can either be the laborer, a business owner, or the investor, or, at some point, maybe all three. But right now we've got the labor part, or I was going to say we got that covered, but not exactly with the unemployment issues. But we have to create that business class and that investor class, and buying stocks qualifies as investor class. Investing in a,
Uh-huh.
in a in a venture capital fund, that qualifies too. So it's not that you necessarily have to you know do something like start a fund yourself, But my point is that everybody has to be involved in at least two of those three. Get a job, start a business, invest. So that's good
Mm.
to see that we're putting in the structures to make um, black sources for funding. That should just be a given. So maybe for the next generation, it will be.
Mm. Yeah, my position is that I have a bit of a qualm with these terms, right? Language matters. You talk about this a lot, Oliver. Women and minorities. Who are these minorities? I hear this term a lot. Who are the minorities? The most underserved class in this country, or the underserved demographic, I should say, is black men or black males. So when you say minority and then you say women, according to the affirmative action, women are minorities. So
Correct.
which one is it?
The reason why, no, it's both, because there's a class of basically those terms evolved over time, and originally it was basically non-white males. So it was a black and white
Hmm.
thing, quite literally. But now white women are minorities. So that's why they say women and minorities, because when you see women, that means all women, including white women. And who's a minority? Everybody that's not covered in the women category, and non-white men. That's who my basically, pretty much, if you're not a white man, you can pretty much get qualified some kind of way as a
Hmm.
minority,
Yeah, but
because that it's
how did it get like this?
Oh, come on. We talk about all the time, come through the evolution of the civil, changing affirmative action, basically changing, brought the changes to the definition of minority, or the
Hmm.
protected class, of the EOC. The EOC changed broadened its definition over the years to where we are right now. So in the beginning, it used to just be a black thing, but then other groups, stepped forward and said we have issues too, and so it kept
Hmm.
getting broad, and so now you can pretty much not even see black in
Hmm.
it. You have to look at it and squint
Right.
at it and go, where do we fit? Because minority, I mean, if this was 40 years ago and you said minority, the first thing that came to people's, or first person that would come to people's mind, coming during and after the 60s, was black people. And that's because it really, if you go look at the census from 1960, it just wasn't really that many other people here. And so
Right.
because of our success coming out with the civil rights legislation, um, which was basically human rights document. Other groups said, "Hey, what about us?" And so everybody's interest got swept into that same policy, and our any effort to be certain, to be fair to
Hmm.
at that point, let me say ADOS, got minimized by the interests of other people. It's not saying that others don't also have valid arguments, but um, giving justice to black people, history shows that's hard for America to do. And if they're given a way to play favorites over minority groups, um, they will discriminate within the groups and have a most favored minority or ranking of minorities, and what we have. And so so we kind of fight against each other. All of uh, the groups that are basically have complaints against white males are fighting over the same small piece of pie.
Well, can't they just have the crust and we get the greater portion?
empire concede nothing. You know, they would not. So that's kind of where we are. But that's collapsing a whole lot of history, you know, in that one answer. But you know, we kind of need you would we just I not we kind of need. I'm thinking about some of the younger generations and what's not being talked about on television. Um,
Mm,
we do need a class on that. You know, when I was coming up, this stuff was always on television, always talked about in school. But now, you know, we're in this post-racial. That is a joke. You know, people think that we're post-racial because we don't talk about these things anymore. Because we have
well,
what's ironic to me is we have younger people saying, "I'm tired of talking about race." I'm like, "You're young. How can you be tired already? You know, you're
I,
going." Go ahead.
no, I want to focus on the article because it, I think it's a good idea to have a launching pad like this, right? The thing is, and I called the SBA last month, and they told me that they only give out these numbers locally, so each SBA is different. How how many black male businesses are being started from these programs, right? Not saying that they aren't any, but I'd be interested in knowing if it's proportionate to women businesses, right? This is very interesting, man.
Well, think of it like
Because
this.
if anybody, mhm,
I'm gonna say, think of it like this. I'm gonna stretch it out a little bit. Just, you know, there's power in numbers. You look at the number of women in America, since women are a protected class versus black men. The largest protected class would be women.
mhm,
So no group is going to be able to get an equal voice to women if we're all in the same fighting for rights under the same I guess law, because women are the largest group,
mhm,
especially if you convince the women that their race is secondary to their gender.
mhm.
So that would answer why they're so, you know, or why even though we can't really get the numbers, I mean, we can see around us. We don't have a sense that black men are winning, you know, getting any kind of equitable, you know, or significant improvement. We can see
Right,
that.
right. I just wish that when we have these sort of topics and not on this channel, but when they have Forbes and New York Post and all these other financial and economic magazines and publishing, um, there should be some emphasis put behind the proportionate number of male, because they openly talk about white males, right, in the article, but they don't they don't seem to really have um, black men being highlighted despite all the numbers from the federal government and any research, any sort of academic research that shows that there's some form of negative impact when black men don't work. The community is actually affected by this, right? So um, there's lack of income per capita in black female homes in comparison to white female homes, because white female homes are also co-partnered with white males. So the same white males in the article that they want to talk about get all the funding. Well, guess what? White women also benefit from that too, right? Because she's in the same household as him. Whereas black females who are impacted by the lack of revenue, the solution is to somehow just give her more money rather than to help her black male counterpart. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, because if the presumption is white men are getting the lion's share of resources in this
Hmm.
country, whether you agree with it or not, but let's just say that's the presumption, and I agree that it is. Okay,
Hmm.
so when the white woman gets her equality, now the white man and the white woman are both getting a good slice of the resources. So their family, that family structure, it's more gets to be more intact.
Hmm.
So when the other women under the cat, the other rainbow women of the rainbow women under the women and minorities, if they get resources and men don't get it,
Hmm.
well, now you're gonna have a power struggle issue with in the families of non-white people.
Yeah, I see Gap Talk is in the chat. Yo, peace to Gap Talk Media, man. Thanks for coming through, giving us that thumbs up, and showing us some love in the chat, man. We definitely got to link up and do something on your channel one of these days this summer. So let us know when you're available, and we'll definitely come through.
I,
If you want to get on the panel as well, yeah, if you want to get on the panel as well, let us know, man. We can always send you a link.
but to your question,
Hmm.
you had it's a big question. Like, one, if I understood you correctly, why is the article itself not even noticing the obvious or delving into the how black men are faring? That gets into issues of discrimination in media. At some point, we're going to have somebody from the National Association of Black Journalists on, because that's a battle that they've been fighting for 40 something years at least. So,
Hmm.
not to mention in journalism itself, I believe black men are underrepresented there. So it's not enough black people in
Hmm.
editorial decision making positions in media. That's one. So if you're there, you're at a lower level, and it's risky. You're kind of like on a pitch count for how much you can push back, because you really don't have the
Hmm.
job security to be the social justice warrior every other story. Okay, so
Hmm.
there are issues with that. Now, then, when the minority person is there, it's not likely to be a black man. So
Hmm.
that's, there you go again. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
look,
So
I'm
it,
just going to say this on that one. I'm gonna leave it alone. Just watch ESPN, and you count the number of women on ESPN versus black men. We're talking about covering sports that's central to black male culture, and we don't even get to interpret what's something that's central to our life. That we're women. I could be wrong, but you watch ESPN and you tell me, and if ESPN, you tell me it's close. It's probably as many, if not more, women than black men.
yeah, it is, and it wasn't like that in the '90s. I mean, you're a bit older than me, but I remember in the '90s waking up to Keith Olbermann, on Sports Center, and seeing an all male panel, and seeing the fiery debates and stuff like that. Now it's not even like that, man. It's been watered down, man.
You would think a
All
black
right, let me get
male
to.
who you think you didn't poke the bear. I'm gonna leave it alone after this. You would think that a black, whether we're talking music, we could be talking R&B, jazz. We could also be talking about sports that you guys have been familiar with since they were probably 10 or 12 years old. You would think that because of our culture, we would be going through college and all the rest to get qualified, that we would have an advantage in those
Mhm.
areas to be get to for hire. But it does, although we have that advantage, it's not valued. Now that's discrimination right there. But go for it.
Right. So, kudos to those guys, man. I think that they have something on their hands. Should be interesting to see what happens with all the numbers. All right, all right. Next one is from who is this one? Oh, CBS Boston. Okay. Massachusetts bill would test the idea of universal basic income. A bill under consideration at the Massachusetts State House is aimed at testing the idea of universal basic income. The long shot bill would create a pilot program that would include 100 residents in each of three economically diverse cities or towns. At least one of the communities would be located in a rural part of the state. Everyone participating in the program would receive $1,000 a month for 3 years and agree to participate in the study. After the 3 years are complete, the bill calls on the Department of Housing and Community Development to submit a report looking at the effects of the program, including whether a universal basic income could be used to address historic inequalities, including institutional racism. A similar pilot program is underway in Stockton, California. Interesting. I want to read that again because I think that's a very interesting point in the last part of the article. After the 3 years are complete, the bills call on the Department of Housing and Community Development to submit a report looking at the effects of the program, including whether a universal basic income could be used to address historic inequalities, including institutional racism. Dollar Will, um, if you haven't stepped away, any thoughts on a study that could determine whether historic inequalities and institutional racism could be addressed with just money?
Right. That's why I was trying to get to say if all they're going to do is pass out money, and we have to. Hopefully, that's not all they're going to do. Do we really need to study whether giving
Mm,
people $1,000 a month for 3 years, if that act alone is going to improve their life? No, the people need more than money. I mean, this is like another. If I'm accepting this on face value, then it's just another short-sighted welfare program. People
well, I
need
mean,
training. They need training
mm,
in relevant skills, okay, as well as the money. So if
mm,
and the training would have to be free. So it couldn't. It's not like you give me $1,000 and I got to go in debt to go to college. No, free
mm,
training for a job that pays a income wage or higher,
mm,
and give me the $1,000.
mm,
And in some cases make the $1,000 contingent on getting training. Now that sounds to me like a
this,
program built to win right there.
mm, I know in Boston we have public library actually has courses on Google products, such as Chrome and Gmail and stuff like that. Once you complete the program, you get a laptop out of it, a Chromebook. And these are minority neighborhoods. Also, the same thing goes for like other utility services like Comcast or Verizon. But my point here is they already have UBI in Alaska, so that we know that works out there. But what happens when you have people just receiving money because they're receiving money? That, like, I agree with you that there has to be some stipulations on what else comes with it, right? What other fourth industrialized training programs are going to be available for those people so that they're not just sitting at home collecting and watching YouTube, because that's essentially what's going to happen. I mean, at some point, YouTube is going to get into this as well with their YouTube TV program platform, and then they're going to subsidize it from like $35 to down to like $10 a month, and it's going to be available, and then you're going to spend your UBI and a monthly paycheck of $1,000 to cover that. I find that to be very interesting as well.
Yeah, and I also would
But
like to have the program target the areas where we're spending the most money, say in the H-1B visa program. Okay, so
mm,
prepare the American citizens to take the jobs that this country is basically sneaking in people through the back door, playing population, race games basically with the H-1B visa program. Because if we were qualified to do those jobs, there would be no backdoor way for.
and this kind of ties in with reparations, right? So the last part of the article says that it wants to look at historic inequalities and institutional racism. Well, when you think about reparations, it's supposed to correct these very issues that they're doing a study for, right? So you have HR 40 on the table, and then you have UBI.
Exactly.
So if UBI in the next 3 years turns out to be, yes, historic inequalities and institutional racism has impacted those people in those areas, and more importantly, black people, because in Massachusetts, there's only so many areas where black people are. Most black people are focused in very, very urban centers. So the majority of the population in Massachusetts are heavily focused in Boston. Boston is a majority minority city. It's made up of over 50% black and brown people, and there's less white people here as a numerical factor. So there's no representation for those people. So we already know that there's institutional racism in the political sphere. Um, and there's also you could look at the civil jobs as well. Black people are underrepresented in these areas, even in the police department, despite the fact that it's a majority minority city. So we know that there's institutional racism there. But my point here that I was making before was that if the study comes back and finds that yes, historic inequalities and institutional racism has impacted these areas, so that's why you need a UBI, you're also making a justification for reparations. So you don't even need HR 40. You just need this UBI study over the next 3 years to really determine whether this has impacted these people.
I think we need both, but it's different. Yeah, different things. Yeah, it's not. I mean, HR 40 would be even if someone is gainfully employed, they still a do, and that ties
No,
into
I'm
the
saying
first part. Go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say that ties into the first topic we were talking about, developing that investor and business class. So people that are already steady in the middle class, they still are due their reparations, so we can create an even wealthier class. So we can say they can help pull the rates up even higher. Some of them can become
Yeah,
business owners.
but I think there has to be more institutional and platform development, right? So how do you create a platform that as a startup accelerator, a business accelerator for those impacted communities so that they do get businesses off the ground, right? Rather than to say, well, we'll look at the study and determine, universal basic income if black people are really impacted by this, by historic inequalities and race and institutional racism.
Well, it
If
sounds
you
like the way that they're taking it on face value, it looks like a system that they plan to fail right in the construction of it, because we know that you can't just. What do you expect to find after 3 years if all you did was give people money?
Well, I think it's because of the areas that they live in.
Yeah,
I
but
think
they
it's because of the
know
areas
right
that they live. I
now
mean, you would never.
that they know right now that the people living in those in the areas they're talking about are not equal, with the exception of lack of money. They have other
Right,
issues. They're unequal in many ways, not just money.
right, right. And I think that money is probably the closest thing that they can probably get to in terms of addressing the issue, right? Right. The immediate issue for those people in those areas is money, right? So they need sustainability. I think that's probably what they're looking at. Um, but it's interesting, man. I definitely think we should all follow this type of stuff. I know a lot of people on different platforms, including Black Gnostic's platform, not him himself, but people within the platform and on different platforms have said we don't need UBI, we don't need universal basic income. Well, actually, you actually do need that. Those people are heavily affected by these politics or by these economics. If you don't have enough money to spend, then you kind of are economically immobilized.
And I'm pushing back on the habit in this country of turning every discussion about equality to a discussion about the black underclass.
Hmm.
Okay, yes, the discussion includes them, but it doesn't rest right there. We have inequality at every level. Uh,
Right.
we want some relief at every level. Okay, that middle that 40-year-old brother or sister that's with work experience and qualifications, they can't get a loan to start a business.
Right.
So they don't have, so we don't create the generational wealth. It's right there. So if we don't
Right.
fix that, no. So we gotta also push back that no, we're not just talking about getting people off of welfare. We're talking about creating
Right.
more Robert Smiths. In
Right. Because
addition
I think Bill
to
Clinton did that in the '90s, right? Bill Clinton did that in the '90s. What with the Welfare Reform Act in 1996, right?
man, that's a loaded can. He pushed a whole lot of people off of welfare without much anything in to replace it with. So and a lot of older people took that, and I say rightfully, we took that out on Hillary. We take that out on
Hmm.
Hillary. We put it that way. May not be fair, but
All right.
hey, she's the Clinton. Close enough.
Yeah. So make sure you guys in the chat, make sure you follow this type of stuff because these feasibility studies are going to be pertinent to some of the advancements that's going to come in the future. And I say the future, I mean the next 5 years. This can determine a whole lot of things, especially if the study comes back and it says, yeah, historic inequalities or historic inequities and institutional racism has impacted these people in these areas, and maybe we need to repair, you know, and restore some of these and compensate these people for these impacts. All right, next one is from CNN.com. Ford is cutting 12,000 jobs as part of its European overhaul. Ford is cutting 12,000 jobs and closing 6 plants as part of a major overhaul of its struggling business in Europe. The car maker is selling a manufacturing facility in Slovakia and closing factories in Britain, France, and Russia, reducing the number of European plants from 24 this year to 18 by the end of 2020. The job cuts, which include roughly 2,000 salary positions and affect over 20% of the company's European workforce, will be made by end of next year. Ford said the reductions would be made primarily through voluntary redundancy programs. Stuart Rowley, president of Ford Europe, said Thursday that the changes would result in more targeted businesses. Separating employees and closing plants are the hardest decisions that we make, Rowley said in a statement, adding that the company was in talks with trade unions and other stakeholders. Together, we are moving forward and focus on building a long term sustainable future for our business in Europe, he said. The company's the company's sales and profitability are strong in the United States, but it's trailing competitors badly in China and continuing to struggle in Europe and Latin America. Ford has roughly 53,000 employees in Europe, including many in the United Kingdom, where Brexit threatens to disrupt auto industry supply chains and trade in cars across the region. The planned closure of the facility in Wales, which was announced earlier in June, means Ford will have only one major plant in the United Kingdom, a diesel engine factory in East London. The British auto industry has been hit hard by concerns that the United Kingdom could leave the European Union later this year without a trade deal. Ford rivals Jaguar, Land Rover, Honda, and Nissan have also cut jobs and announced factory closures in the country in recent months. Um, People aren't buying cars anymore. It's it is what it is. There aren't that many jobs, available for people to continuously buy these vehicles out here. We covered several articles. Repo men used to see 90 days to go pick up a car. When it's delinquent, now they're talking 45 days. You're talking 6 weeks to go pick up somebody's vehicle because they're delinquent on payments. I mean, you only get 30 days to register your vehicle anyway. So if before they can even finish registering their vehicle, there's a tow truck outside waiting for you. So definitely pay attention to the auto industry market, because as a transportation staple, if cars aren't moving and people aren't buying, um, that's that's the writing on the wall that something major is about to come. And then in 2008, you saw bailouts for GM and Chrysler. Ford got their handout back in 2006, so they kind of avoided that. But when you see things, factories shutting down, those sort of brick and mortar facilities are still open, or not still open, but still usable, and they're not being utilized at the moment for producing material or vehicles. So therefore, loss of production also equals loss of revenue. Loss of revenue also means um, involuntary separation, which also leads to um, financial impact on residential areas that where these people live, right? And thus, if there's less income in that area, there's also less spending on more extensive staples, such as going to Home Depot, going to Lowe's, buying that lawnmower, buying that chainsaw, buying those hammers and nails and stuff like that. For what? Why would you need to? Because you can't afford it. Doggo, you have anything you want to add to that? I think Doggo stepped away. So I'm looking at the chat right now. Um, says buy used cars with cash or lease. Never buy a new car. At this point, it's coming to that. It's coming to that area. I've talked about this several times in the last couple of months, but I had a coworker who went to Toyota and actually got a deal on a brand new Camry, $1,000 down and $49 a month. This is on a brand new Camry, no leather, but it was pretty. It had GPS and navigation and all this other stuff to it, Sirius XM or whatever it was. Um, but it was a brand new car and with 0 miles on it. You couldn't beat that. So that's my major point, man, is to pay attention to the automotive industry, because people are buying less cars now. I mean, back in the day, back in 2007, there were people out there who had big SUVs, big Cadillac Escalades, big Suburbans, 24-inch rims. Once gas prices went up to $4 or $5 a gallon, they traded those suckers in and got rid of them. All right, let me get to this next article. Okay, Dollar Will left. All right, so this next one is from Forbes.com. If student loans might be canceled, why not borrow more? This is interesting. It's one of those rules of electoral success. Advocate policies that concentrate the benefits on an easy to satisfy. Let's get rid of this real quick. On an easy to identify interest groups, preferably one that is sympathetic in the public eye, and disperse the cost onto the entire electorate. It's how we get Coke sweetened with corn syrup rather than actual sugar. It's also how we get proposals to cancel student loans. As my colleague Will Luther points out, The fact that two of the Democratic front runners have made debt cancellation such an important part of their campaign suggests that the issue is going to be with us for a while. But it would be good. It would be a good idea to cancel student debt. And importantly, how does even the prospect of cancel student debt affect people's incentives? First, let's consider the quality of the policy. A lot of commentators are pointing out that it's fundamentally regressive, meaning that we're basically taxing the poor to pay the rich. As economist Alexandra Williams Salter puts it in the Dallas Morning News, it's a transfer of wealth to those with relatively high levels of expected lifetime income at the expense of those with relatively low levels of expected lifetime income. The idea might have some merit, but it will make wealth and income inequality worse rather than better. Even saying that the idea might have some merit is perhaps too charitable. In 2011, economist Justin Wolfers called it the worst idea ever in a Freakonomics post. Why? First, there's distribunal effect. If we're going to have policies that transfer wealth from one group to another, it doesn't make much sense to transfer wealth from taxpayers generally to high income college graduates. As will Luther and so many others have pointed out, a college degree brings spectacular financial returns. As a group, college graduates aren't needy by any reasonable definition. Second, Wolfers points out that the debt cancellation doesn't make college more affordable because it's a transfer to people who already went to school and who are already enjoying the returns on their investment. Third, he notes that a successful campaign to cancel student debt will encourage further wasteful lobbying for transfers. The cancel debt movement is already part of the fallout from past bailout subsidies and transfers. Capitulating will only encourage more lobbying. Hence, I think we would do well to focus on downstream effect, debt cancellation, or even the reasonable prospect of therefore or thereof will have on people's future incentives. Encouraging people to produce in exchange rather than lobby for transfers and special privileges are important parts of the problem of constitutional design that has animated so many scholars among them Douglas C. North and James Buchanan. The prospect of being able to enjoy good times now and stick with other can you mute yourself, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
The prospect of being able to enjoy good times now and stick other people with the bill later encourages people to be less than completely responsible right now. My kids are 7, 9, and almost 11, and we're very fortunate in that I work at an institution with an employee tuition benefit, which means, of course, that my salary is lower, so it's not exactly free tuition. But there are a lot of other expenditures that go into college beyond tuition. If student debt cancellation is on the horizon within the next couple of decades, we now have an incentive to change how we plan to finance their college education and what they plan to study. There are three important effects here. First, the prospect of student debt cancellation encourages us to finance the entire thing with borrowed money. Why pay now or go to the trouble of trying to earn scholarships if we can borrow on the cheap and have a reasonable expectation that taxpayers will ultimately be left with the bill? Second, why should we be price sensitive college shoppers, and why should college work to contain costs if there's a good chance it will all be paid for with other people's money? Third, we have incentives to borrow a lot of money to pursue boutique degrees with limited job prospects if we know that someone else is going to pay the bill. As Econ Talk host Russell Roberts explained in the mid '90s, if we go to a restaurant and know that someone else is paying, we have incentives to order the best thing on the menu, drinks and appetizers, the whole lot. If you go to dinner with a few friends, it's relatively easy for you to monitor one another and check anyone who seeks to take advantage of the situation. It's a lot harder to do in larger groups as the benefits get more concentrated and the costs get more dispersed over a larger and larger population. People have stronger incentives to take advantage of everyone else. What's more, given our psychological our, our proclivities and our tendencies to be self-serving, it can be pretty easy to convince ourselves that we're actually doing everyone a favor by borrowing tons of money to study something that doesn't translate to employable skills. Student debt cancellation is already suspect because it redistributes wealth upward. As we can see, the prospect of debt cancellation changes people's incentives for the worse. I don't know if I would call it the worst idea ever, but it's certainly not a good one. Um, I got a few points for this, man. First, you know, when you talk about canceling student loan debt, you're not talking about people who went to Harvard and are working at, Goldman Sachs or some other institution. That's not what they're talking about. What they're When you talk about canceling student loan debt, you're talking about people who can't afford to pay to begin with. So there's a certain level of income that they live off of, that the IRS and the Treasury can actually see. They can see your monthly income, and they can deduce, and they can make a decision deducing that if you make less than middle class and you have a burden of debt on you, that should definitely be canceled since you've graduated school. If you graduated 5 years ago and you're still making minimum wage, there's a high probability that you're never going to pay that debt anyways. So why is there such a concern about taxpayers being hooked on the bill? Well, guess what? Taxpayers are paying off the military right now. They subsidize the military industrial complex. You don't seem to have a problem with that. You just seem to have a problem with students, or former students who graduated and can't find a job because they were made some promises and they were told to go to school, but they were never told anything about this financial impact that would have on them. So those are my gripes. What do you think about this, Oliver?
That's a tough one. My problem with it is that we care too much about people with college debt. Now that's gonna piss everybody off. Their life or their struggle is no more different. No, we shouldn't care anymore about their struggles than we care about the people who couldn't finish it all, are smart enough to go to school but couldn't go. We have to end this presumption that people with degrees are smarter than people without it. That's my pet peeve. Okay,
Is that what you got from the article?
we need to get from. I didn't hear all of that article. My internet died, but I'm just responding to what you just said. I'm saying we need a total solution that and judging from the headline of the article too, to take away the burden of people with college degrees, their financial debt. It solves their problem, but what about the other problems? Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that most of their issues are coming from college debt, right? The inability to put down on the first as a first time home buyer is being impacted by their college debt. Their inability to buy a brand new vehicle as opposed to buying a used vehicle, right? I'm saying a lot of those people are impacted by this very ball and chain.
I'm with that, and I'm saying it's screwed up for everybody, and so why not them too? Okay, they have the job. I'm going to explain. I'm explaining. All the data shows that people with a degree make more money over their lifetime. So they're having
Mhm.
financial difficulties now, but society is biased in their favor to give them money later in their life. Okay, so they have it hard right now. They got the great job, but their extra pay that they're making is going to pay for this ball and chain that they're tied to. Now let's look at other folks who didn't. One that was smart enough. I'm not buying the premise that nobody knew. That's crap. We always knew, and we were talking about it at the time. As college would go up every year, and as grants would go down, so they always knew. Okay, so they did it anyway, and they did it, meaning took on that debt anyway. And a lot of people were smart enough not to take on the debt, so they don't have the paper, the degree, and they don't have the job that goes with the degree. So what about them?
Mhm.
They're underemployed. They don't have the money to rise up to the next level. Um, so they're stuck. So I'm saying, I guess I don't necessarily. I'm not of the camp that we should prioritize the pains of people with college degrees, because even in this state of them with their ball and chain, they're still doing better than the people without one. That being
Not
that one
necessarily.
being that being people with a college degree.
Not necessarily. I still see people at Bed Bath and Beyond with college degrees working, for the same salary as a person who doesn't have a degree. So I wouldn't
Yeah,
100% say that. But
but the
Dr.
data
Phoenix,
does
you're on
say
the
that
panel.
the data does say that they're going to do better over the course of their life. Where's the data that says that the other people are going to be able to make up for the disparity that they experience by not being able to one being smart enough to not take on that debt. Okay, for a and I majored in film, so when I throw this crack at liberal arts, okay, just know I was a film major, a film school dropout to run a business. Okay, where's the data that shows that they're going to be equal to the people with the college degree? So even all the data says they're going to be okay later. So I'm just saying,
Dr. Phoenix, you're on.
I'm saying help everyone. That's what I'm saying.
Dr. Phoenix, you're on the panel. What's going on, bro?
Oh, what's going on?
My sound alike.
Yeah, yeah.
Air like, air like.
How's everyone doing tonight?
I'm good, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I didn't hear because I just got into the chat and into the broadcast. But my personal take on it as someone who's regularly I'm still very heavily involved with academia, and I spent a lot of time as an undergrad because I didn't go to college until I was in my later so I was in my later 20s, obviously, because I did time in the military, did some other stuff. And so, but for me, originally, I did all my general ed. I did that at a community college in Chicago. Um, I did at Harry S. Truman, which is on the north side of Chicago. So I did it there before I even bothered to step into into a 4-year institution. But I went to a PWI, and I'll say this much
All right.
about what happens with Black students specifically.
All right.
Because I see in the comment a lot of folks talking about STEM. I'll say this much. Again, I did nursing. My undergrad was in nursing, and it is really hard to get into those programs, especially like a baccalaureate degree in nursing. I mean, if you look at the statistics for Black folks getting into that, for example, I mean, it's similar to medical school. I mean, it's pretty low. So, I mean, most folks tend to, for example, in nursing, for example, they tend to get in at the community college level, so they get an associate's degree. But at the baccalaureate level, when you get to those PWIs, the competition is heavy. And unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, I do agree with what Will said. A lot of these students, they all know. They all know, but most of them just aren't ready to be competitive to really to get into these STEM programs, to get into these pre-health, pre-med programs. They're just not doing it. I've had plenty of students who told me to my face, "Oh man, I gotta take general biology, I gotta take organic chem. Man, I don't want to do that, man. That's too hard." I'm like, brother, sister, you got to do this if you want to get to this. If you want to do X, Y, Z, if you want to get into these programs, this is what they require. Like, I don't know, man. I'll go do this early education degree, or I go do this degree in psychology. They're like, well, I can go get a PhD in psychology, but people don't understand. PhDs in psychology are very, very difficult to get in. In fact, they're harder to get in than medical school. Why? Because you got so many people with psychology degrees and you got way too many applicants and not enough spaces. And two, they get to run their pick of the litter. So they get 4.0s all day. They get people who have 4.0s and undergrad and graduate school because typically, for example, in psychology, you cannot even get a doctoral degree in psychology unless you got a master's. So so these programs, and then it just as my honest opinion from just mentoring students, and I've mentored students in the McNair program, and I mentor students, and also my lady, she did a lot of mentoring. They had a program specifically at my alma mater where they brought in they is called as part of a foundation here in Wisconsin. We call the Burke Foundation, and so they would bring in mostly black students, and they pretty much pay for everything. They would pay for their room and board. They would pay for their tuition, books. I mean, if they came from homes where they weren't getting the support they needed, they put them into student housing. I mean, really nice student housing. If anyone's in a chat from Milwaukee or anything like that, it's on the east side of Milwaukee. Everyone knows over there is really nice, nothing but mansions and such. And so, they would put them in housing over in those areas, but 97% of them didn't even make it through the program. The females were getting knocked up. The dudes were just on some hood shit. I mean, and so I just think
I've
fundamentally
seen
across
it
the
all.
board, I
I've seen it all when I was in undergrad.
yeah. So
Seen
I
it
think
all.
fundamentally across the board, I think there's a few problems here. One, black students as a whole aren't prepared to compete at a collegiate level. Especially when you go to these PWIs because the competition is hot and heavy. When you're in an HBCU, and I don't know if any folks went to an HBCU, and and
All
I'm
the
gonna
way.
say something. I'm gonna say something a lot of folks don't like, but there is a hierarchy in collegiate level education, and typically HBCUs tend to be at the lower rank, and most PWIs do not respect the HBCUs and typically don't respect college grads from HBCUs because typically they see them as inferior students that weren't ready for college, and HBCUs do give a lot of students that weren't technically college ready. And going back to that program I was just talking about, they were letting students into my school that had 12s and 14s on the ACT. So I
Wow.
mean, this is the craziness, and again, even the students that I've known that did get out of my alma mater, the vast majority of them either did something like social work, which uh, look, if you're in healthcare, everyone's a damn social worker. I'll put it that way.
Well,
You
I have
you got to deal with everybody's issues. You got to deal with everybody's stuff. But social work is not a degree I feel that's very viable for Black students. Again, most of the folks did degrees in psychology, another really popular one, early childhood education, higher ed degrees. I mean, these are really popular ones. I've seen a student that had a degree in community service. Whatever the hell that means. So, I
well,
mean, again, and a lot of these students that I've seen, they work at places like Foot Locker and Champ Sports now.
well, I have to
Exactly. Exactly.
as a HBCU dropout. I have to say, I'm not gonna say I failed Howard, but Howard didn't fail me. Okay, I had great opportunity to start a business, and it ended up giving me a 25-year career. So the point I just wanted to throw out for the HBCUs, I don't have the fact to be able to attribute it right now, but there's data out there that suggests that graduates from HBCUs do better at the master's level, at the postgraduate level, than blacks that attend PWIs. Okay, so I just want to put that feather in there for the HBCUs. So we might, start out a little lower, but we finish stronger.
No, no, I'm not saying. I'm not
I
saying. I'm not
just
saying as a whole that I.
Let me
You know,
swing
yeah.
let me swing the mic to Chaos. Chaos reigns.
Yeah.
First time on the panel. Chaos. Do you have anything you want to
Mhm.
add to this?
Good evening, everybody.
What's up, bro?
Yes, good evening, good evening. Thank you, Mike. I have done streams on the college situation, even on my previous show and on my channel now. And as I look at move forward, that it is a scam, but the problem with us as a society, especially as collective people, is we're not seeing what is to come. And as you know, even with the same with the push of college now in the 21st century, we do not really pick on that. The same with the college thing, regardless how it keeps increasing in what do you call it, tuition, that it has very relevance in the side that's moving forward, what's to come, depending on what field you're going into, mind you. Now, I'm not saying people should not go to college, but people gotta know what you're getting into, because one thing that they try to do is to trap you with these loans, which they're not gonna forgive automatically. Nor they have things in place said they can forgive it. But really, truly, the whole point is to trap as much people in the loans, because right now, last time I checked, we're at 1.7 or trillion in debt, student loan debt. Majority of those debts are defaulted now out of 40 million Americans. So obviously, we look at the count of how many by race, which they never did been clear about, that a whole bunch of our people are in debt that attend a four-year university, whether it's a HBCU or a regular collegiate university, either as women or men. So we have to know what we're getting into to really say how we're going to benefit now moving forward, so that way we could progress in this so-called society without putting a lot of debt, which debt is one hinders to lock us out, because they still control the jobs. Can we not create enough jobs for ourselves to combat these job shutout, regardless of how highly qualified you are? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think a lot of more emphasis should be put on trade schools.
I agree. I
I
agree,
went
Mike.
to a trade. Yeah, I went to a trade school myself for electronics, and I had the best time of my life in terms of education. Everything was hands on. You didn't have to sit in these sort of AP classes and whatnot. It was just straight. Every night. I went to night school. I didn't go to day school, but every night you would just get into your lesson plan, which was to tear apart a computer or tear apart a washing machine or something like that.
And
The
put it back
focus on
together.
electronics was well, not put them back together, but you're actually analyzing the piece, all the components of
Mhm.
electronic circuit boards and things of that nature, how to solder, how to desolder, how to use an oscilloscope, how to use a multimeter.
Mhm.
All of those things, helped me get to where I am today. So I'm more well-rounded in most of my team, and most people in IT, because I have that extensive background and from a trade school perspective, whereas other guys, they went to big universities, and they got the degree, but they couldn't write code to save their life, or nor do they understand why a computer isn't even starting up. They don't even understand the electrical
Components.
engineering aspect behind, well, not the components, the electrical engineering aspect behind how electricity is generated and how much electrical current is going into a board, and why the board fried and things of that nature. They don't even understand that. All they know
Mm.
is I plug this in, I push this button, and it works. And if it doesn't work, you replace it. Whereas me, I walk in with that trade school
Oh.
background. I walk in with that trade school background, and my service tickets are more detailed because I have more fundamental knowledge than they do, more technical knowledge than they do. They just focus on the fundamentals, and that's why technical trade schools are a lot more important than just your basic universities. I think your traditional PWIs really try to cater to just passing people for these soft studies, and when it comes to hard studies, these people tend to have higher employment because they tend to focus on areas that are very critical that most other soft study enrollments didn't really focus on at all. So
Mhm.
I say all that to say that when it comes to education and student loan debt, these colleges are recruiting these people. They're going out there. They're saying, "Hey, we'll get you in here. You'll make a lot of money, and this, and that." The recruiters try to sell them something, and next thing you know, they got these people locked into these institutions with massive loads of debt coming down coming down the pike. A year after they graduate, and these people can't find a job, so they end up working at. I've seen people with college degrees doing 2 and 3 jobs, working for Amazon, delivering packages, doing Lyft and Uber, and working at Target or Walmart. It's nuts, man. Can't find a job.
I think
No,
I
So
think
Mike.
another I think another thing that's contributing to the problem is we're set up to chase status. You know, people coming out of high school, they might aspire to, they have these aspirations that are like greater than their capability a lot of times. And so people are sold the dream that you can go to college and be anything you want to be. And if you have the money, they'll take your money, but the fact is, by the time you're 18 years old, there's already a stratification in terms of who are the thinkers in society, and where you are by that time, you're not really going to change your ranking that much.
One thing, can I ask?
I'm not saying you can't grow. Everybody can learn throughout their life and grow, but someone that was not, I say at the top, I'm not even talking about a grade, because you can be smart and not go to class. But I mean, if you were, hold on, if you were near the, if you were a bright student, okay, and versus an average student. I'm not talking about the grade. I'm talking about ability to process information. You're not going to catch up to that person that was or that group that was that were the front runners. You can improve, but you'll never become them. So that stratification is there. So the system is set up to exploit, people's insecurity, instead of telling them, look, we sit down, we're going to give you this battery of tests. This is what you're good at. This is where you will excel. And I guess I'm piggybacking that off of your more trade school kind of thing. Not everybody can or should be a PhD.
No, I don't necessarily disagree with that. But I will say this much: most of the folks I know,
can I ask people on the panel
that are in healthcare and stuff like that, most of these folks came straight from the hood. Like I know physicians and nurses with doctorate degrees and MDs or whatever, and these folks came straight out the hood, and these folks they make more money than their white counterparts. So I mean, I don't think necessarily that your position or status is solidified by the time you get in. I just think I do think the less, if you're not as proactive in pursuing and having pursuits that lead to careers and that generate income that allow you to scale that socioeconomic ladder, yeah, I do think at that point, yeah, your status becomes solidified. However, I am a firm believer in trade school. In fact, I routinely tell veterans, because a lot of guys that I talk to are veterans, I routinely tell them, go do a trade. You're first of all, you're a veteran, so you just get automatic preference in just about everything. And secondly, I know plenty of folks that are in trades that make a lot more money than folks with MDs, PhDs, whatever.
What military you are, Doctor? It says Doctor on the last
name. Yeah. So I was in the Army, so I spent about 6 years in the Army, in the U.S. Army as a medic. So,
nice. Nice.
Yeah. So again, I did 2 bachelor's degrees. I didn't have no debt, but I will say this much in regards to what Mike was saying earlier, is that, yeah, pretty much all the black students I know is that they walked out of my institution. They walked out of there minimum 70 grand in debt. I know folks walked out with undergrads with 6 figure debt. Mm-hmm. So I do agree wholesale. Mike and Will are both correct in saying that, like, yeah, there needs to be a heavier focus on trade schools, because again, a lot of folks don't, you learn a lot of things in trade school that are far more practical and also allow you to better learn some of those underworkings, because
now, less time than wasting 4 years.
Well, I think part of it too is that when you're in a 4-year institution, when you're in a university setting, the teaching that happens tends to be more abstract, tends to be more theory driven. So it's meant to create people who want to either do research, want to be academics, unless you are in one of these professional programs like what I did, or some of the other ones like engineering and law and all that other stuff. But again, at the university level, most teaching, outside of those professions, outside of professional programs, is abstract. It is theory driven. It is meant to create people who want to pursue academic careers. So I think there's a lot of truth in what both Mike and Will says. And so
Well,
I do fundamentally think that both gentlemen are correct in that regard. So yeah.
well,
Yeah, and also
sometimes.
you need to, then I need to move on to the next article. The, the,
Okay.
the other thing is that anything less than $12,000 in tuition is forgiven by the government. So what happens with these trade schools is that the trade schools never exceed more than 12,000.
Yeah.
So
But but you
if
think
you're
about it,
you're
Mike.
you're a black male, if you're a black male and you're trying to get into the STEM field, this is the fastest way to get in is through these electronics or electrical technology programs that's going to give you the fundamentals and the hands-on principles of working in these areas, and plus you accumulate something like 900 hours of time in class. I think they call it shop time, and then you go into the field and you need like 2,400 hours or something like that to be a journeyman or something like that. In like the electrical engineering field, I forget how many hours it is, but those hours get accredited towards that field. So there's a lot of ways we can finagle this. We just need to sit down and really have a real deep conversation about it. Let me get to this
No.
next article.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay.
Yep. All right, this next one is from Forbes.com. Millions of jobs have been lost to automation. Economists weigh in on what to do about it. Artificial intelligence and automation promise to usher in a new era of inexpensive goods, effort, effortless personalization, and freedom from tedium. Yet, beneath the surface of innovation, a current economic disenfranchisement threatens to sweep society away. This week, business leaders, policymakers, and researchers convene at the MIT Media Lab for NTech next to discuss how to wrangle in exponential technological changes without breaking the economy as we know it. Lockheed Martin uses augmented reality in the construction of its new Orion spacecraft. Technicians don the Microsoft HoloLens and see an overlay detailing exactly which piece from among of thousands go where. Shelley Peterson, Lockheed's head of engineering technologies, reported that the preliminary use cases result in over 90% reduction in touch labor, turning what once took multiple shifts into work that one person can do in a matter of hours. This case is one among multitudes echoing the tune of technological streamlining. Efficiency improvements, automation, and shifts to lower price labor markets must be embraced by countries looking for competitive advantage. But they must go hand in hand with mechanisms that support displaced workers. Over 2% of Americans, 7 million people, lost their jobs in mass layoffs between 2004 and 2009. Workers without college degree are particularly at risk. As production met automation and moved overseas, the broader citizenry enjoyed cheaper products while large sectors of the workforce were left without a loss of livelihood or with a loss of livelihood. Harvard Fellow in Technology and Public Purpose Susan Winterberg shared that laid off workers typically see a permanent 17 to 30% reduction in wages when they return to the workforce. If they don't re enter the job market within 2 months, uh, resume callbacks drop dramatically, and many are left with no choice but to join the gig economy as contractors without benefits. They are predisposed to suffering from their. I'm sorry, there's like a lot of noise in my background. People on the street playing music. Um, from depression to from depression to marital problems, their children are even 15% more likely to repeat a grade in school. Wow. So this chart here shows non-college workers 1970, 80, 90, and 2000s up to 2015. Non-occupational skill gradient remaining. So mid-skill work are scarce in cities as rural areas. Low-skill work as prevalent. So
Well, I can
look
I
at
can
the chart.
I can say that I I have firsthand knowledge of that. I as I've said before, I had a career in media, um, and I'm a college dropout, but I had one of those. I got in, and I knew lots of many other people of color, mostly black, got in. Are excellent. It's a high concentration of people with Ivy League degrees in that industry. A lot of us rose to levels of great responsibility, management, various leadership positions. The reductions in force come along. We're out. You would think that, if you've been working in the field for 20 something. Now, okay, now enter the internet generation, multimedia. This is what we've been doing all of our life. We're overqualified for what's going on in social media. You got a lot of social media jobs, production jobs. They look right past minority folks with 15, 20 years of experience if they don't have a college degree. So this is kind of links to another story. It's a bigger issue that it has had many solutions for various aspects of inequity. When we're talking about this degree thing, because there's a if you there we are working jobs and are excellent at jobs that says that you have to have a degree for it. I fought at my place of employment. I worked for a three-letter media organization, one of the big 4 or 5 in the world. Okay, I fought to keep the college degree requirement. I successfully fought to keep the college degree requirement off the job application because there were too many of us working the job as leaders who were training people, supervising people that had degrees. The supervisor didn't have a degree, and was training the people with the Ivy League degree. So how do we keep? So what is the function of the degree at that point? The degree does not accurately determine qualification. It's a filter. It's being used
Let
as
me
an economic filter. So it's a form of
let me finish the
racism. It's a
article.
tool of, I just want to make the point. It is a tool of racism, discrimination. But go ahead.
What to do? Winterberg suggests a policy of mandatory early notification to workers. Companies should report planned workforce changes to a global automation observatory. This gives workers time to look for a job before becoming unemployed, and government civil society time to plan for specific reskilling, tax revenue forecasting, and recruitment of new businesses. She notes that the EU already tracks such data and stressed the importance of a worldwide observatory that tracks labor market changes due to automation. Without it, we don't really know how mechanization is changing our world. MIT Sloan professor Paul Osterman recommends tapping into America's 1,600 community colleges and to reskill displaced workers, as the institutions effectively yield large wage increases for students. Another option may be employer or government subsidized online training and digital degree programs. We talk about Udacity and EDX all the time on here. So at least one thing is clear: doing nothing is not an option. Entire industries have evaporated from the American economy. This will only expand in years to come. Rather than fight technology, we should embrace it and prepare workers whose fields move overseas or are learned by robots. Every human deserves the opportunity to learn skills that will carry him or her into the future. The alternative effectively holds disadvantaged members of our society back, building a future enjoyed by a few at the expense of many. Both government and employers can and must do better. I find it interesting that it says, the alternative effectively holds disadvantaged members of society back, building a future enjoyed by few at the expense of many. Well, it sounds like African Americans to me. Sounds like ADOS. Um, Dr. Phoenix, you have anything you want to add to
Um, Again, I can tell you specifically in healthcare. I mean, their automation is going to shake up healthcare for sure. I mean, one of the things that I've done work with since I was an undergrad was I've done research involving diabetes and diabetic retinopathy, and we were working with designing algorithms to diagnose diabetes and ultimately diabetic retinopathy, as well as some other ocular diseases by using images. And so we had this camera system, and I'll make a really long story short, but the long and short of it is that stuff like this would typically be in the realm of an ophthalmologist, for example, being able to diagnose, being able to take images, look at the images, and being able to see, what's going on with the pathology of the retina and such, and then make a diagnosis. But now, because of where you have automation taking place and you having artificial intelligence in particular, is that is going to eventually at some point supplement and even replace some of those duties that typically nurses do, physicians do, especially in areas of imaging, where any area of medical science or clinical science, I would say, that involves imaging, X-ray, CT, MRI, you are seeing artificial intelligence and learning algorithms being developed that can actually do the jobs of radiologists, oncologists, neurologists, whatever. In the nursing field, for example, nurses tend to do a lot of the medication administration as well as monitoring patients for the effects of medications, and also is discharging patients. And you're seeing areas now where it's going to become even easy because of automation. You're going to see that medication administration can be automated. That's for sure. Documenting these in health records can be automated. Ordering meds can be automated. So I mean, within the healthcare industry as a whole, automation is primed to shake it up. And so, however, what the thing about being in a professional and being in a specific health profession, such as a physician or nurse or whatever, is that eventually what's going to happen is that many of these folks are going to move eventually into a consulting role. So, again, they'll still be able to do their function as a physician, nurse, whatever, but it'll be in a very different way. But some of those rudimentary functions within a clinical environment will be automated at some point.
So you're saying
Chaos?
more
Wait,
like a service. Oh, sorry.
I'm
go ahead,
sorry, sir.
Chaos.
So it seems to me we're moving into more a gig type service economy. Service some people like a gig in some way.
I don't know about a gig per se, because you will never be able to 100% automate healthcare. I mean, it just the nature of how healthcare works. I mean, yeah, you can replace a lot of those. You can replace a lot of functions, but again, if you ask any physician or nurse, if you're in the ER or you're in the ICU, like I am, I'm in an ICU. You know, most folks are showing up with like 5 or 6 comorbid conditions. I'm seeing folks
Right.
regularly. They got heart failure, they got kidney failure, they're on dialysis, they have diabetes, they have atrial fibrillation, they have high blood pressure. I mean, I'm regularly seeing folks with 5, 6, at minimum 4 comorbid conditions. So yeah, you can have AI and automation that can help you manage those patients, but
Hmm.
the decision making that comes into play about what to do will still be largely up to that physician or nurse.
Well, one of the issues with this system is that they're not automating fast enough like other countries, and they're trying to catch up. From what I'm hearing from other streams, still that it's here, but they're trying to go faster with it, as you could say.
Yeah. That's certainly a truth because again, when you look at just the cost of healthcare, we're talking healthcare in this country is about 18 to 20% of GDP.
Mm-hmm.
20
Right.
cents of every dollar that gets spent in this country is spent on healthcare. And so
Right.
again, when you think about when you consider the cost of healthcare in this country, and just the fact that healthier people, let's say folks like on the panel or even folks in the chat, if you're a healthy person, you got insurance, you have to pay insurance to cover all the healthy people. Cover all the sick people.
Unhealthy people.
Yeah.
Unhealthy people.
So again,
Mm-hmm.
insurance companies are looking for ways to cut those costs, and and automating and automating many of these tasks within a clinical environment will help to reduce those costs. It's much easier
Yeah.
to do this and have people who are skilled at at deploying, at developing and deploying and monitoring and doing technical support for these technologies is far cheaper, even though these technologies initially can be more expensive, but over the long term, it's far more cheaper. Again, I don't know if you heard me when the first chat I came in here, a typical stay in an ICU, for example, costs 15 to damn near $50,000 a day. The average person is
Yeah.
staying in the ICU minimum 4 days.
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah. For minimal issues.
yeah, exactly. So again,
Wow.
you can potentially cut these costs in half with just automation alone. Again, you go into an ICU, you're going, you can, if anyone's ever had any run-ins with the ER, ICU, or whatever, you got family members. What you see this? You're talking to the physician, you're talking to the nurse. They don't order like 20, 30 different tests. They're doing blood
Mm.
draws and labs every single day. This stuff costs thousands of dollars.
Mm,
Right.
You
I
get
see the issue.
meds in the ICU that cost thousands of dollars. Not a pill, but thousands of dollars per just milligrams.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, you're dealing with the average patient in an ICU again, as an example, that's having 3, 4, 5. I've had patients that have had like 8 meds that I'm titrating and running at any given time. And that is very difficult. You got meds that are very volatile, that can cause a number of reactions. And again, when you consider that, yeah, you can have automation that will take place, but again, there are still things that again automation cannot technically replace. So for the most part, if you're in if you're in a role of a physician, a nurse, or physician assistant or anything like that, yeah, there's certainly there's certainly going to be some upheaval, but these folks will never be out of job per se. And you can even say the same, especially with anesthesia. And I don't know if any of the brothers are familiar with the field of anesthesia, but anesthesia is another area that's really primed to where they're looking at automation. They have machines now that can do anesthesia. So if you're a
Mhm.
CRNA, you're an anesthesiologist, they're never going away neither, because again, you're still dealing with volatile meds. People have reactions all the time for anesthesia. People
Yeah.
crash doing surgeries all the time. And when they crash, a machine can help somebody that needs to get 6 liters, that needs to get 6 units of blood. You can't, a
Of
machine can't do
course,
that. So again,
because it doesn't have arms and legs yet.
well, it's not just
You
arms
know what I'm
and legs,
saying?
but
But
again, it
really, a
requires.
machine only does. Uh,
No, go ahead, brother.
go ahead.
The,
I was gonna say, because with machinery, it only does one thing. Okay, next task, this and that. But while the person start shaking, the machine, and it doesn't have that type of component like a human would, right?
Yeah,
Think right back.
no,
yeah,
it's controlled. It's controlled. Once you put
There
the
we go.
settings in, it's already controlled.
And
So
I don't
based
care
on the
how good the
patient
algorithm
doing
is on an AI machine, it's not gonna really pick on that. So it still needs some human qualities for that.
well, again,
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
Like the AI, the artificial intelligence, or how they program it, to really catch on certain things is not that top yet. 'Cause how like AI is, man programs the machine, right? Like keep coding and all that stuff. That it has up to a
You
point where
understand? Do you understand? Do you understand how? Do you understand how AI works?
like nah, I'm not fully understand the artificial intelligence like that, like fully. I'm gonna read on it, but still have a long way to go.
Okay.
I give you a prime example. If you go into an ER, let's say you know someone that one day they say, okay, well, I'm having chest pain. I think I might need to go to the hospital, and they show up in the ER. The first thing they do is that you say, well, you walk in, you see the nurse, he or she asks you, well, how can we help you? What's going on? And you say, well, I'm having these crushing chest pains. And first thing they're thinking, okay, well, this person may be having a heart attack. So first thing we have to do is we go immediately into a myocardial infarction protocol. So
Wow.
first thing we're doing, we're putting you on an EKG. We're monitoring your heart rate. We're looking to see, okay, where's these signs in his rhythm that might signify he has had a heart attack, or he may possibly be at risk for a heart attack. And then so you have these various steps that are involved that requires a level, okay, where if this patient met this condition, this is the next step that needs to happen. So again, these protocols are generally written by physicians, by nurses, whatever. And so
Yep.
again, you have things, and so where AI tends to come in at is sort of on the latter end of that, when those patients are more stable and you can just do regular maintenance of them. If
Right.
that
I
makes if
see.
that,
And then that
That
goes
makes
to
sense. That
if
that,
that
that
makes
makes better
sense.
sense. Yeah, yeah. Well, the one of the biggest issues the Black Brain Trust, where a lot of people are concerned, is how far automation is going to go to take away their little jobs they had. Because I get this question come across a lot of times when I even deal with this subject on my stream, and some people are scared, and I tell people I'm not afraid of nothing. You got to expect the unknown. Especially if you're comfortable. And a lot of people have been too comfortable in certain positions, and that your comfort could be stifled at a given notice. This same put at play that are people going to adjust, right? They like it or not, unfortunately. And it's not a hard thing,
well,
but it shows us that we should really be more prepared for the unknown, and we have to get out of this mindset that we just wait till disaster strikes to start scrambling. I just don't like that mindset. That's what I mean.
well, that's why you have the Black Brain Trust. That's exactly what we do day week in, week out. Dr. Phoenix and myself have talked about Black people not being prepared for fourth industrialized opportunities, because they're
Mm-hmm.
just not prepared at grade level. If you have people who sit on social media for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day talking about relationships, but not focused on the immediate impact that we just discussed here in the article, millions of
Mm-hmm.
jobs that are going to be at a loss by the end of 2019. 1/4 of these jobs are filled by African American women who work in these repeatable task operations. You know,
Actually, that's a great
they
point.
they yeah, they sit at a desk, they answer a phone, you know, they punch some numbers in the computer on a
Mm-hmm.
dashboard or something like that, on some kind of UI. And what happens here is this stuff is being recorded in the background, and the programmers, the architects, the software architects, the developers are looking at this and saying, this person does this every single day. We can take that same task that's being repeated day in, day out, and we can automate it. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, and therefore that person gets replaced, or that whole office gets replaced, right? So that's why you have automated calling, or automated calling systems, right? So you call the Dell, you call HP or something like that, and you're first greeted with a automated system.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But
So
sometimes I don't like.
those sort of
You
roles,
know.
those sort of roles that Black people are involved in, especially Black women, will be gone by 2022. We
Yes.
covered an article last month by the World Economic Forum that discussed, um, you know, millions of these the top 10 jobs that are labor right now that don't require a college degree will be replaced by 2022. Eight out of the 10 of those jobs are staffed heavily by African American women in this country. So
Wow.
think about when you think about what's about to come down the pike, and I see what's going on YouTube. Dr. Phoenix and myself have agreed on is that a lot of Black people are just not prepared for that transition. And this
Yes.
is the last window of opportunity between 2019 in 2050 to get it right. Because if you don't get it right now, the window of opportunity is going to be gone, and you can find yourself in a perpetual downward spiral into a permanent underclass, which is
I,
not you end up. Go ahead, Dr. Phoenix.
no, I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead, continue. Go ahead. I'll just say when you're done.
No, you'll end up like some of these. You'll be a third world country within a first world power.
Yeah. In the next 30 years on average.
No, I would actually I would say if you go to many places, it's already here. You know, like I said, I'm here in Milwaukee. I'm in Milwaukee, and I'm telling you right now, Black people do literally function as a third class, as a third world city in a first world city, first world country. I mean, again, you know, where I one of the Walmart that I go to from time to time, I see Black folks there. They got half the checkout counters all automated. Again, you just got like one or two people who just do whatever, and people can't follow directions and can't properly scan the stuff, so they have their issues. So you got one or two people there, but most of the people are in the automated checkout lines. They're not in the real checkout lines unless you got like tons of groceries or whatever. So again, and who do you find when you go in these places like Walmart, Target, whatever? You find Black folks, black women specifically.
Yeah, that's why I was saying earlier that when connecting it to what we were talking about in the earlier article, when you introduce UBI without a training component, you're just talking about a new welfare.
Well, I think fundamentally what happens, and as Mike and I talked about, I mean, again, even at the trade level, there's this misconception, and I'm a person that wholesale believes in trade, and getting Black folks need to, especially brothers really need to be getting into trade school, because I'm a property owner, I'm a landlord, and I tell you right now, man. We get a windstorm. We had a windstorm like a few years ago. Had to replace an electrical mast. Man, it cost me like $600 just to get you need a master electrician to come out. It was $600 just to get him to come out. There was like another damn near $2,000 just to get him to pull permits to get him to fix the damn thing.
Wow.
That's minus the building materials.
Yeah. So again, brothers really need to consider the damn trades. I mean, all this crap that goes on out here about going to college, I don't believe. I personally think unless you have a clear plan to get into one of these professional schools that requires college, medical school, law school, engineering, nursing, whatever the case may be, pharmacy, whatever, unless you have a clear-cut plan and you can compete, you can do the work, because this shit is cutthroat. I mean, I'm not even about to sit here and lie to you. They tell you go look at any one of these, for example, you look at nursing school websites, they say, okay, yeah, the minimum GPA you need is a 3 point. That is a lie. The folks in my program had minimum 3.4, minimum. I would say most of them probably sitting at a 3.6.
Or probably higher, 3.8.
Yeah. I mean, and again, these are med school numbers. This is not medical school. This is nursing school. Not to say that nursing school isn't competitive, because it's hella competitive. You can't fail an exam in nursing school. You fail one exam in nursing school, you get kicked out.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. We're telling people that, you can be anything you want to be. Well, by the time you get to the point where you're 18, 19, 20, you pretty much define what's really practical for you.
Well, I think people's psychology is set. However, I do think psychology is pliable, but I only think it's pliable when life hits people. And I think for men, and specifically Black men, what happens to us is that we take the biggest hit socially when we don't do these things. Black men pay the biggest price. It's not just socially; you pay the price physiologically too. Again, as I talked about in the very first panel I came on, Black men are leading the country in the shortest lifespans.
Because remember, as a Black man here in the West, or we call America, the margin error is, you cannot risk it. The error is very slim as Black man. And if you had given notice, life could be taken, or you could be in prison. One swoop, if not careful. Yeah. Especially in certain areas, like in Milwaukee, it's bad down there for Black people, especially with Black men in Milwaukee.
Man, you didn't hear me the first panel I came on, but I talked specifically about what happens to brothers here in Milwaukee. Wisconsin in general incarcerates the most black men in the country, period, bar none. They all come out of one zip code, 53206. If you Google this right now, you'll find a documentary on it. This is just how crazy it is here in Wisconsin. And again, most of the black males I see in this city, I mean, most of them, I mean, I can't even help them. And I've gone into a lot of these, I've gone into high schools, I've gone into alternative high schools. I can't even help these kids. I'm sitting here talking to 16-year-olds that got like two high school credits.
Wow.
I mean, I can't even help them. The only reason they're there is because they have cases, and basically their PO told them either you take your ass to school or we go throw your ass in jail. It's just that simple.
Yeah, they can't even fill out a FAFSA form.
Yeah, I can't even help these kids. Even if I want, and I don't get me wrong, I do want to, but even if I sat there and sat down with them every single day and helped them with their homework, everything, I couldn't even get them into these health professions because simply they're already done. They got felonies. You can't get into no damn health profession with a felony.
No,
Well, the funny thing. Okay.
Let me get to these statements in the chat. Andy says, "I'm sure we will have an AI lawyer that can interpret the law better than a human." They're already working on that. I think we have an article coming up on Monday that talks about that.
That's interesting.
Wow.
AI.
That's interesting.
So you're saying the law profession might be taken over too by artificial intelligence too, very soon?
Well, it might be assisted, right? One lawyer may open up a practice, but may leverage high-powered artificial intelligence to help sift through a case, right? Let's say a case has multiple areas of evidence and things of that nature that needs to be gathered, and other documents and stuff. That those documents get fed into data sets. Data sets is what drives AI. So the better the data sets, the better the AI is going to perform. You take a lot of these data sets, these cases, you feed it in there, the machine learning does what it does, and the deep learning aspect does what it does, and then the artificial intelligence is the overarching mechanism for driving the technology. That artificial intelligence is going to give you a better response than a human can in the same time frame. It's just that much better, especially with the way artificial intelligence AI is changing right now. Google uses TensorFlow. TensorFlow 2.0 is already out. I think 3.0 should be out by later this year or next year. So what's happening here is the technology is moving fast enough, and the hardware that goes with the software is performing so much better now, and so much cheaper, much more affordable. We covered an article about NVIDIA's Jetson Nano, which is an AI processor, small single board computer that can actually do all of the AI functions in real time for $100. Before, this would have cost you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 just a year or so ago. Now they dropped it down to $100. You really can't beat that, right? So what I'm saying here is that, to Andy's point, this is happening in real time. People are already thinking about this type of stuff. You imagine multiple lawyers, multiple firms would have their own AI, and they'll just be, they'll send their AI to court with a hologram, of themselves in the courtroom arguing these cases, and they're not even present.
Wow.
No, I agree. Again, what you just said highlights something I talked about a few nights ago when I talked about a current research project I'm working on with a wound care doctor, where we're working with, he's a brother, he's doing his PhD in computer science, and he's helping us develop an app for identifying and classifying wounds. So we're dealing with everything from diabetic wounds on up the damn ladder. And so again, he's working with us where we're using artificial intelligence to classify wounds and to help, and just in general to help with better diagnosis. So again, this is one area, I am personally working in an area where I'm seeing where AI is going to have a significant impact. So, and again, just as Mike said, the AI is only as good as the data you feed to it. And so the data has to be key. And so again, so the folks who are
Mm.
responsible for gathering the data is where the rubber meets the road. The folks who can
You know,
tabulate the data, who know how to apply it, get into the tables, that's where the rubber meets the road, as far as I'm concerned.
you
Yeah,
know, one thing. Before Mike, you have any more articles to go through? Come on, say one thing before you continue. You have any more
I
articles?
do, but I just want to catch this other. I do, but I want to get to his next statement in the chat from Jen Denson. Um, he says, I'm in IT now, but it took a while. Most blacks at the PWI I went to dropped out. I feel the issue is high school prepping. I think we need boarding schools heavy. Thoughts on the youth prepping? Dr. Phoenix, I think that's in your court.
Um, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna go keep it 100 with you, man. It is really hard to get young people. You get to these damn PWIs, black folks lose their damn mind. The dudes that most of the the funny thing is, the believe it or not, the brothers actually last a little bit longer than the females. Now, in general, in general, most of the many of the females will get out, but I've known so many of them, man. They got knocked up first semester, knocked up, gone. A lot of brothers party their way out first semester. You just failing exams across the board, failing classes across the board. They're done. And the problem is that I have personally sat down and devoted my time personally to tutoring kids in general chemistry, anatomy, physiology, general biology. And again, it's very hard to get these kids to put your damn phone down. These kids got to check their damn
Yeah,
phone every 10 seconds. I mean, they're like crack
yeah,
addicts
ratchet
when it comes.
deficit disorder.
Yeah, I mean, you it's very hard, and I remember one of the first times I listened to your broadcast, Mike. You was responding to someone in the chat that talked about ways to make this information more entertaining. There's nothing goddamn entertaining about this. This is real life. There's
Oh,
black folks want this thing where we want things to be nice and digestible, and it has to be funny. This isn't funny. This
swag.
is yeah. This
in
is real
fact,
life. You have to be able to sit your ass down 3, 4, 5 hours a damn night and learn the damn Krebs cycle from front to back, back to front for general biology. And again, if you can't even master some of these basic things, you can't even tell me what the basic structure of a cell look like, you won't make it. I walked into white schools with third graders that can tell me, they can draw out the structure of a DNA and can name the four can name the four
masses.
bases that make up DNA.
Yeah,
And I'm
but
seeing
Exactly.
white
You're
students do this. And
yeah.
meanwhile, go ahead, brother.
No, I was just going to chime in because I agree with you because my experience was the same way. I'm a little bit older than you are, but my experience is the same. A lot of these guys, especially when you talk about women, sisters getting knocked up. I've seen that every single semester. They come in, they enroll in IT or some other degree program and or some sort of STEM program. They get knocked up first, second semester, and they drop out. Um, Same thing with brothers. They party and bullshitted, and then when it came down to capstone or to do your thesis, they thought they can copy off somebody's paper, and it don't work that way. And the same brothers would turn around and say, "Oh, you a sellout, you this, you that." No,
mm,
everybody else did their work. Why didn't you do yours? A lot of these brothers, and I see some of them in the manosphere. These guys didn't do well in school, and so they knocked the guys who did do well in school, and then they blame everybody else except for themselves. And now you
yeah,
have AI taking jobs away. Um, and part of the college experience is that it's about networking too. So who on the
I agree.
inside.
That's 90% of college, brother. If you just show up and did the median, you'll get a damn degree and get your ass out. If you got the network will get you so much further than the damn degree itself.
And that's why college is a good thing in those areas in STEM. In STEM, I'm referring to.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, brother. The networking is the key component. That is the only damn reason you pay $15,000 a damn semester to go to college.
Hmm.
That's the only damn reason. It's to get the damn networking, and this is where black folks fall flat on their damn faces at every single time. I have never formally applied to a job a day in my life. Never. Every single thing that
I
came
me
across my
neither.
way came from the people I knew.
Yep.
There is
But
not a
Yep.
place I go where I don't meet folks that ain't trying to put me in the game, ain't trying to help me with something. It just is what it is. And black folks have not figured out the game of leveraging your network. Your social capital is your damn capital of the 21st century. Period.
It's the only
you know,
currency. It's the only currency that matters.
you
Exactly.
just draw a very good point, which a lot of them that even went to school and then they finished and they barely struggled to get the job. That's where it falls. How well you know somebody. Because remember, everybody that got a position in a certain situation, they knew somebody. And we don't get this until we come to the end of the road. And that's where, the amount of time we could have spent more, even in these universities, could have been better. Yeah, you had to get the grades, yes, but as well, how you connect with people, you'll go even further. But we don't do it. We just, mess around our years in
Well, that's
college.
why we have a Yeah, that's why we have a hangout called Black Cultural Intelligence, where we focus
Mhm.
on the cultural aspect of inter networking with other groups of people from different backgrounds, and that's very important because the industry is so diverse. The only thing that's really differing, or only thing that's going to matter is your networking, your social network. How broad is it? Just like Dr. Phoenix, I've never really had to apply to a job. You know, to get a job. Most of my roles have come through LinkedIn or somebody I met at a conference and said, "Hey, I like what you said on the panel," or
Yeah.
something to that effect, and they say, "Here's my business card. Hit me up." And that's that was the interview. So I already made it past that first step. It was just about getting the paperwork through HR, and then next thing you know, I'm being offered a role in the next two or 3 weeks. So
I give you a prime example. About a month ago, I got contacted on LinkedIn by a gentleman here in Milwaukee who's helping to do the rollout of the All of Us program. If anyone familiar with that, that's part of the
I've
precision medicine initiative. And so, but again, they reached out to me because the brother heard me on the local radio here in Milwaukee, and he said, "Yeah, I heard you on the radio. I really like what you're talking about. We're having a meeting, next week. Can you come to it? We can talk." And so I come out there. You say, "Yeah, I'd like to bring you on. You was talking about genetics and you was talking about nutrition and all these things. We'd like to bring you on as a consultant. See, you come work with us when we have our meetings and we're out in the community. If you wouldn't mind if you can come out and just teach some of these classes on this, and we'll pay you." And this is just me just picking up little side gigs doing this. Nothing. This isn't my main thing I do, but again, you know, the ability to network is something that's so lost on black people across the board. I know people who graduated with nursing degrees and engineering degrees, and this is really true in engineering. I know too many damn black folks who graduated engineering degrees, never did a damn internship. And you live and die by a damn internship if you're a damn engineering student. You don't get a
yep.
damn internship in your damn junior year, you're fucked. I mean, that's just long and short about it. You're not. It's gonna
Because
be
they're not taking
so damn
entry level.
hard for you to find a damn job.
Yeah, because they're not taking entry level. You have to have
Yeah,
some form of externship or internship at some point. And if you
yeah,
don't get an internship, that means you sucked at some point. Because
yeah,
companies don't, not the company, but the school get you. There's only so many internships available, and if you don't really have that GPA available, or you didn't do enough to actually get to that internship role that was put on the docket in the at the school, you're school. You're screwed. So it's important that black people just lack cultural intelligence in that aspect. The ability to even say hello in Spanish, saying hola, gracias. The ability to actually speak someone else's language and to understand their background and where they came from is huge in the STEM field because the STEM field is so diverse in itself.
yeah. I mean, again, and this is the big thing, and this is where black folks miss the money every single time. They're just, if you look at, excuse me, I'm sorry, I live near an airport, so you might hear a plane. Uh, if you just look at all of the scholarships they have in STEM, I kid you not, you might find 5 or 6 that are specifically for black students, and then you might find 10 for like Hispanics, Native Americans, and some other folks. Because why? Because black folks, we don't do the damn work. We don't advocate for ourselves. We let people come and take the things that we're owed. That's actually there for us. Like I said, like I was saying earlier, I've seen too many. I've seen programs. Like I said, my lady, she was in this one program where she was running. It was a mentoring program. They were bringing in students. They were bringing in kids from inner city Milwaukee, straight from the hood. And these kids had 12, 14s on the ACT. They were letting them into a 4-year school, to a 4-year PWI, paying for everything: tuition, room, board. They get a stipend, everything, books, computers. If they were without it, they got it for them. This whole program would have covered their entire 4 years. I kid you not. I think she told me maybe about 3 students made it through the program. 3 students.
I see we got a thumbs down. Yeah, I see we got a thumbs down just now. So be interested to understand why we're getting thumbs downs. Let me go to this next article.
But it doesn't matter if you get fun saying, because I look at when we deal with intelligence and reasoning, people not gonna like this stream because it's dealing with a hard truth to what we're facing.
Let me get to this next article.
Okay.
This next article is from Axios.com. Apple acquires self-driving startup Drive AI. Apple bought Drive AI, an autonomous driving startup once valued at $200 million. Let me mute Dr. Phoenix. Valued at $200 million, has hired dozens of Drive AI engineers, Apple confirmed to Axios on Tuesday. Why it matters. The deal in hires confirmed that Apple hasn't given up on autonomous driving project. The deal comes after Drive AI talked with multiple potential acquirers, but in the end, Apple won out. Apple also purchased Drive AI's autonomous cars and other assets, sources tell Axios. Drive AI ceased operations within the last 2 weeks. Apple hires are mostly in engineering and product design, per a source. The purchase price was not disclosed. Apple was expected to pay paid less than $77 million Drive AI raised in venture capital. To say nothing of the $200 million it was valued at 2 years ago after its Series B round, Axios Dan Patrick reported recently. Drive AI's highlighter orange vans ferried workers around a business park in Frisco, Texas, and shuttle fans in nearby Arlington to Cowboy games. Interesting. Go Cowboys. 90 workers in California, the San Francisco Chronicle reported, and the company employed many more in Texas. The startup had been looking to be acquired since at least February. The information reported earlier this year. Apple's Drive AI hires will join other Apple hired from rival autonomous car company like Waymo and Tesla, and according to the information. So Apple acquires a failed autonomous car startup. I'm not so sure I'm concerned about that. Apple has made purchases in the past that have not always been disclosed. So what's happening here is that Apple has saw some setbacks in the past, and a lot of people had speculated that Apple was going to buy Tesla. You know, they're going to go out there, they're just going to buy Tesla, and that was just going to be the end of it. In reality, that was never going to happen, and I've stated that multiple times that they're not going to buy Tesla. However, they did buy Drive AI. It was cheap. It was a drop in the bucket for them, and we'll see what happens with this. I can't imagine that they would, keep these one-time vehicles, these Nissan NVs or whatever they're called. I can see them doing other things, but I guess this is a good start for them. They get a lot of the patents and technology that the company had for dirt cheap. Might I add you? Black people spend more on sneaker apparel and Louis Vuitton belts and
Yeah.
whatnot, then what this company was even worth. So let that sink in your brain.
Hmm. And another thing, I think Apple knows what they're doing in regards to investment. Funny for with electric cars, I noticed that Asia has come up with their own electric cars. I'm not sure if they're gonna market here yet in the US, but right now I see a lot of people buying Tesla where I'm at. I'm not sure if anybody else seen it, but it's getting more popular now. So, you know, for them to really invest it, I don't think they see the long term of it. That's why they decided to go somewhere cheaper. That's my opinion.
Mhm.
Well, I think just Tesla would have been too costly of an investment. I mean, it would have just been really costly. And again, I think the thing about Tesla is that they are still the standard for electrification in vehicles in the industry. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
I think
think
one
that
thing.
uh, people have to update their mindset about when they hear Apple. People still think of Apple as this small try hard company. They don't they kill that idea. Apple is a giant. Apple is the largest, of the publicly traded companies in America. Apple was the number one by market cap. It had passed Exxon. So people still see Apple as some small little feel good story. No, they are a giant now. So any space they enter in, they're entering like a lion now. They're not a little pussycat no more. They have money, big money now. So we'll see what they
Okay.
do, but they won't be tiptoeing around because they got money now. Money matters.
Money only matters as far as what your capabilities are.
No, money matters for
So
everything that can be purchased. That includes human capital. Any smart people can be purchased. And Google shows that.
yeah,
They just hire people because they're
yeah, but
smart. You can buy patents, you can buy whole companies. The game is different when you enter the game with deep pockets. You don't have to grow or roll your own. You go and buy it. And everything
that's
is
Apple's MO though.
and no, that's their mo. That's their past. That's what I'm saying. You got to break that mindset because that's the
I'm,
mo of.
I'm not.
Let me finish this point. That's the mo of all small companies that you have to develop it within because that's the only way you can do it because you don't have the money. But when you get the money, you don't take the slow route. You jump into the game by buying stuff, buying whole companies.
Yeah, that might be well for companies like Berkshire Hathaway that have a lot of money but don't have a lot of engineering and talent. But when you're Apple and you pride yourself on innovation from within, that's Apple's whole model to this very day. It has always been that model that they do that. I mean, they were questioning Tim Cook's acquisition of Beats. They said that if Steve Jobs was alive, he would have never had made that decision. So what
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying here is, go ahead.
that's what you're making my point. You're saying what they were. I'm saying things
I'm
change
not.
when you get
I'm
money.
not saying what I'm saying. They still hold on to that model.
You just said that Tim Cook bought Beats, and people were asking why did Apple do that, right?
Not people. Former employees of Apple said this themselves that Steve Jobs would have never made that decision.
Right.
But what I'm saying here is the Apple diehards, the former Apple employees and shareholders are looking at this and saying that's not the Apple that I know, right? That's not what I aspire to be. People go to Apple to work there specifically for that very reason to create things from within. When you say that Apple can just buy anything that they want, the article just specified that Apple is still struggling with autonomous vehicles, and this is the lion that you're referring to, right? They're
Right.
this lion, and they're just so boisterous and whatnot, but they can't even develop a very smart car that they've been desiring to get to. They can't even do it themselves with all the money that they have.
Why would you expect them to be able to uh who's winning? Tell me that. Who are you comparing them to in terms of the smart car race? Who are you comparing them to?
You can compare them to smaller companies like Waymo, companies like Tesla that has been, Tesla started off pretty small.
Yeah, but Tesla's
I
a
would
tech
say that
company.
they're still small.
But Apple's moving into a new area. You're still expecting them to come out into a new area and get to the top immediately. They're going to get there.
Actually, they've been working on this for 10 years now.
Yeah,
Secondarily,
they've been in the they've been in that game for quite some time now. They just have made
Yeah.
very little progress. That's what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the article. The articles that we've read in the past have stipulated that they've had a difficult time competing even with the smaller, with what you say, the Cubs, right? The if Apple's the lion with all their resources, they still can't seem to get it done. Microsoft had the same problem in terms of building hardware. They couldn't compete with Apple despite all the money that they had. And they threw everything that they had at it, and they just could not do it. They were just incapable of doing something like that.
yeah,
The
but
Windows mobile
when we go
platform.
back in time, and we're talking about 10 years ago and what happened, Apple was not always the number one by market cap. They just got to that point. So things change. Culture, businesses have cultures, and Apple is going to go through a cultural shift, and they're going through it now. And so a lot of people that have this idea, even those former employees of, they're try hard, we're going to do it from within. It doesn't. They they have bigger shareholders, more institutional shareholders now that's going to be pushing certain more traditional big Fortune 500 types of acts. They're not that small little mom and pop anymore. And if Steve Jobs was alive, Steve Jobs would have still been running a publicly traded company, and he would very much still be doing what a company of this size should be doing, or they would fire him like they did before.
That's what I think. The latter is more true than anything else.
Yeah, but a big company with pockets. If you're the number one by market cap, you're bigger than Exxon in terms of market cap. You can't walk like a pussycat no more.
A who cat?
I think he said pussycat.
A putty cat.
Yeah, I agree with Mike.
Chaos Rain, jump in.
Yes. No, I have no comment with that. I'm gonna sit back on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think Mike was on the. I think Mike is correct in regards to Apple. So.
Yeah, I'm not saying Apple's a bad company for those in your chat who are listening to this. I'm not saying Apple's a bad company. What I'm saying here is Apple has a particular business model that they've been holding on to for quite some time, and they're still holding on to this. That's why a lot of people are questioning whether Tim Cook will be around, in the next couple of years. He could very well be out in the next couple of years, and they'll probably replace him with a woman or something like that. I mean, especially now that Johnny Ive is gone too, because Johnny Ive has been rumored to take the helm at Apple for a couple years now. So Apple's going through its own internal chaos as we speak. Despite all of the tax benefits that they've been granted under the Trump administration to bring all of their jobs back onto shore, they still seem to have a lot of internal issues, political issues, and culture issues as well. There's really no reason to buy a MacBook anymore outside of preference. People are starting to buy, Chromebooks and other cheap laptops to do their work now, for writing code and things of that nature. There's just no real reason to spend $2,000 anymore. You can't really justify iPhone sales anymore because iPhone sales have been stagnant the last 3-4 quarters. They haven't really done much. They really have not innovated at all.
Yeah,
No.
actually, that was actually what I was going to say was that they have not. The innovation for them did stop the moment that Steve Jobs obviously had to
Right.
sit down. And so again, for years they were the standard bearer in the smartphone space, but again, Google and everyone else was playing catch up. So, eventually Android and, Android manufacturers caught up, and they've wholesale surpassed Apple. And again, Apple's just been playing catch up. So they haven't had any real innovation outside of their chip manufacturing, that's really been the only innovation that they've been able to do.
Well,
But
let me. Hey,
So
what's going on, everyone? How's everyone doing?
it was good, man.
Hey,
Oh,
what's
not
going on?
much. Not much. Hey, Chaos reigns peace, man. I'm glad you joined us, bro.
oh yes, I had to join the brain trust.
Yeah,
Now
no, we talked
thinking about it.
some time back, man, and I'm glad you're here now, man.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. What you have to
Oh,
say?
I was just gonna say, just two quick things about Apple. One, one of their strategies to kind of maintain what market share that they do have at the moment was to lobby Congress and the government to take action against Huawei. Okay, that's the first thing, because truth
Mhm.
be told,
Samsung
Huawei,
too.
Samsung also, right, Samsung and
You
Huawei,
remember they took Samsung to court. They took Samsung to court over
antitrust,
uh
right?
well, not antitrust, but
Patent.
supposedly
I'm sorry.
the artwork of the Samsung Galaxy phone allegedly replicated that of the iPhone, and they sued them over art. So let that sink into your brain that somebody can dress just like you and you can sue them because they got the same sneakers as you.
Right, right, and then with the Huawei thing, basically it was Google and Apple that were both pinned because Huawei is going to have a lock on 5G. So basically, on the App Store development side of things, Google is going to be asked out, and so is the Android platform, and Apple is just kind of just sitting there with their pants down. Okay, that's the first thing there. The other thing too is that their chief designer apparently has started to see the writing on the wall, and he just left to go and start his
Yep.
own firm.
Hmm. They
Well,
never kept Wozniak either.
mm. Well, I know when they first debuted the current design on the current iPhones, I knew a lot of folks were criticizing them, saying that Steve Jobs would have never okayed this design. This is a half-ass design. He would have never let this fly. And again, and this has been the typical sentiment, about the products that Apple has put out in recent years. So, I think this is just more proof of the matter that, their market share and the amount of money that they have isn't really serving their benefit at all.
One important question I can ask everybody, since y'all follow us better than me. Do you feel what Steve Jobs envisioned and what he laid out, even Apple when he first established back then before his death, to see where it was heading, that he didn't really like, like where it's going? Because it seemed like everything's for profit. Like obviously you had to make a profit, but this man seemed more like a visionary, like something more than just a product. And they otherwise don't see
Well,
the same vision here. And I'm just throwing this
Well, keep
question
in
out.
mind keep in mind that this is the same guy who tried to treat his cancer, by eating more vegetables. Um, I
Okay.
believe it or
I
not,
thought
I
the
don't even
company
think
was.
believe it or not, I don't even think honestly, that's not what killed him. It wasn't even the vegetables. The vegetables actually did help him. He would have died sooner, you know, not go into the whole idea with cancer and pancreatic cancer in general later. But again,
Mm.
what killed him was that he opted for a damn transplant. He opted for a liver transplant. That's what happened. That's what destroyed him. He had
Opted
a liver.
in or opted
He,
out?
he opted in. He had a liver transplant while he was like stage 2, stage 3.
Mm.
And to get a liver transplant, and to get any transplant in general, they have to strip your immune system, and you have to be put on immunosuppressant drugs. And so
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, you really want to give somebody a liver transplant and then put them on immunosuppressant drugs while they're battling cancer. Not a good idea.
Wow.
But again, he didn't have no real good options, because what ultimately happened with Steve Jobs was that he was first told that he had pancreatic cancer years prior to. He didn't do nothing. His doctors, and he had a particular slow growing version of pancreatic cancer, which is typically not true of many people who get pancreatic cancer. Typically, when people get pancreatic cancer, it tends to be more of an aggressive, fast growing variety, which is why you see the mortality rates for pancreatic cancer so high.
Mm-hmm.
But in particular, he had a very slow growing one that he kind of decided to treat holistically, if you will, for a number of years, and then eventually got to the point where he started experiencing liver failure and had to get a transplant, all this other stuff. And so that's, if you ask me, I think that's ultimately what killed him, was getting the liver transplant, then going on the immunosuppressant drugs. But that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
But I will say this much about Steve Jobs: he's also the same man that did save Apple when he came back to Apple, and it was his vision that created the iPhone. Now, remember when the iPhone was, when they first announced the iPhone back in 2007. I mean, this phone was revolutionary. I mean,
Yeah,
this phone,
for what it was, it was
at that
yeah,
time
for
it
what
was
it was,
considered
it was
revolutionary.
revolutionary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
because
didn't
it
own
was
the
a touch
iPhone
screen.
too.
It,
So
it was a touch screen. It was a touch screen that made it revolutionary in the App Store.
Yeah,
BlackBerry and T-Mobile Sidekick, those were smartphones too. The Nvidia, not Nvidia, Nokia Engage phone. They had multiple phones back then. They probably had 100 phones back then that were smart in their functionality, but they didn't have direct app store integration like the iPhone did, and that's what forced the market to change, was the app store integration.
yeah, exactly.
If all it had was telephony capabilities, then it wouldn't have been a game changer. It was the app integration plus the intuitive UI. If you even used a BlackBerry back then with the scroll wheel, that was okay if that was the only thing you needed to use. But when you picked up an iPhone, the way your brain works and the way how the icons were set up, it was just so intuitive that it just kind of canceled out anything else that was in competition with it. Let me get to
Yeah.
this next article. Dollar Will, did you have anything you wanted to add before I went on?
No.
Okay. All right, this next one is from nextweb.com. Hackers breach cryptocurrency exchange BitTrue for $4.2 million in Ripple and Cardano. Another day in another cryptocurrency exchange hack. Attackers have thieved $4.2 million worth of cryptocurrency from exchange BitTrue. Earlier today, the exchange announced on Twitter that it was subject to a hack in which bad actors made off with $9.3 million Ripple, or $4 million estimated, and $2.5 million in Cardano, $233,000 dollars in coins. At the time of writing, the amount totals to a little over $4.2 million. Half of the stolen funds have been transferred to private wallets, while the other half was moved to 5 exchanges. And Change now have frozen $1.35 million worth of the funds. BitRue told Hardfork in a statement. BitRue expects to recover the $1.35 million chaos range. You have to mute yourself up, please, brother.
Oh, is my phone making noise? Hello?
Yes.
All right, I'm muting myself.
After recovering the frozen assets, the net loss will be $3.15 million USD. The total includes $1.89 million USD loss from individual user accounts and $1.26 million USD loss from BitRue's own hot wallet. The statement reads, the funds lost by user accounts were insured and will be replaced by BitRue as soon as the exchange resumes service. According to BitRue's statement, the hacker exploited a part of one of the company's internal review processes to gain access to a hot wallet. The funds of around 90 users have been affected, but BitRue remains adamant that the situation is under control and that it will return 100% of lost coins to those affected. System administrators at BitRue claimed they immediately detected the hack and shut down the exchange within 30 minutes. While BitRue is communicating openly about the hack, it originally confused users after it announced it would be performing unscheduled temporary maintenance that would last about 15 to 18 hours. The website's homepage was replaced with a message saying Bitroot is currently undergoing scheduled maintenance. At the time of writing, Bitroot's homepage is still displaying this message. It seems Bitroot used the cover to begin investigating the hack. About an hour ago, Bitroot said on Telegram that it's expecting to have login and trading functions restored by the end of the day. Indeed, this is just another exchange hack to add to list for 2019. This sort of information is not very pleasing to those who want to get into cryptos. I know Lionel is a big advocate of cryptos, and he's done a crypto hangout last night. So shout out to him. Check that out if you have not already checked it out before already. Yeah. These exchanges are being a common place for attacks, man. And my suggestion to everybody, man, keep your wallets cold.
Cold storage.
A cold wallet. Yeah, a cold storage wallet. You can use S3. You can use a USB hard drive. You can use, Microsoft OneDrive or something like that. Well, I wouldn't say Microsoft OneDrive, but there's ways you could burn it to a CD or a DVD. Just keep your wallets in cold storage.
Did you just say burn it?
Keep it up to date. Keep it up to date at least. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. I'm not a crypto trader. You have to break that down even more. When you say cold storage, you mean something like this locally accessible, as opposed to
storage that is
like offline. Yeah, offline storage.
Yeah, storage that is detachable. Storage that is detachable.
Detachable that I can hold in my hand.
Yeah, like a DVD-RW.
Or you mean like a traditional leather wallet that got in my back pocket, in the sense that it's physical, tangible on my personal.
Well, you take like your USB, like your Nano S or something, and then you stick it in your wallet and then put it in your back pocket.
Right. I mean, as opposed to storing on one of these sites is being hacked. So what's happening? Yeah, break that down.
Right. So what's happening here is, and Lionel can probably speak better to this because he's been he's either been a victim or seen victims in his time in cryptos. People's wallets sit inside what would be considered warm storage. So your laptop being on would be considered warm storage. Although it's protected, it's still live, right? So cold storage would be something that's not actively available for access. So in this instance, the exchanges are considered to be hot wallets.
So
they're always live, right?
I could put my wallet on a removable drive of some sort, and when I needed to make a transaction, I can plug it in, make the transaction, unmount the daggone drive, unplug it, sort of like what a lot of smart people do with their income taxes. My income taxes are on a drive that's on a shelf, except for when I'm uploading it.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally have an external hard drive that is completely dedicated to that inside of a locked container. Okay, it's like a weapons of mass destruction sort of suitcase, right? It has a pair of handcuffs to it and handcuffs to my wrists. And when I walk around with it in the house, I look like an idiot. But that's my cold storage, right? That's how I keep my stuff safe, and I've never had any issues. I can drop that thing down the flight of stairs and it's still secure because it's inside of this locked container.
So you're not gonna let your lady put it in her bra? You know how sisters do that.
I'm not getting into any of that, brother. But what I will say is that a lot of people, they get robbed for their stuff, man, through leaving their wallets available, and that's where the issue is. And even in the article, it states that a lot of those some of that money, some of those tokens, those cryptos, were transferred to a digital wallet somewhere else that they don't even have access to. So those are the many issues that you're going to run into in terms of dealing with cryptos. If Lionel was on a panel, he could probably speak more extensively to this. But in my experience, And this is not even just for cryptos, man. I've dealt with guys in the music industry who buy these big terabyte hard drives. They store all chaos. Rain, please mute your mic if you're not speaking.
Okay, sorry.
Um, Guys who have all these beats that they produce either through Fruity Loops or through a through a Kai a Kai music machine, and they keep all their stuff in hot storage. And then when the hard drive goes kaput and it fails, and all their music was stuck on that drive, they're calling guys like me to come recover it. And I'm saying it's too late, buddy.
Mm.
You just lost $100 million worth of beats on a pair of terabyte hard drives.
Not to mention unplugging it with the meantime before failure or whatever, it takes longer because you're not running, not actually running. But thank you, brother, for making it plain. And I just also wanted to say the most important part of that article for me is how the money was insured, and so the safety protection is there, so that it lets you know that these companies, the insurance industry, governments are behind this thing. They want it to work. They want citizen Joe Citizen not to take that L when something gets hacked. So I think that's the part I want to amplify in that article, that it said that the loss was insured. So it's like, I remember the same thing happened when the internet came along, and the government was behind people using their credit card online. So the credit card companies, insurance companies, they got together and basically made it clear that if your money was stolen or any way by using your credit card, they would back it. So that same kind of thing, I see. It's good to see that people have that same kind of backing to get into this crypto space. So it's real, because all of the powers that be are offering the type of assurances and insurance to get to I guess foster adoption.
Yeah, Andy in the chat says cold storage. Storage that you put like in a meat locker. You just leave it in there and it gets nice and cold. Let me get to this next article, and then we can pass it to Dollar Will, and he can open up his bar chart. This one is from CNBC.com. By the numbers, best June for the Dow since 1938. S&P 500's best first half in 2 decades. Wall Street wrapped up a roaring June and first half of the year as investors cheered the prospects of easier monetary policy from Federal Reserve and awaited clarity on U.S.-China trade relations. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rallied at 7.2% this month, notching its best June performance since 1938, when it surged 24.3%. Caterpillar, Apple, and Goldman Sachs drove the Dow's gains in June, rallying more than 12% each. The S&P 500 posted its first half of the year since 1997, soaring 17.3% and reaching an all-time high. All 11 of the S&P 500 sectors rose in the first half of the year, with tech rising more than 26% to lead the gains. Energy was the market's laggard in the first half, rising just 7.1%. One subset of the technology space that shined this month was semiconductor stocks. The Van Eck Vector Semiconductor ETF, one of the most widely followed ETFs for chip stocks, skyrocketed more than 12% in June, notching its biggest one-month gain since September 2010. Semiconductor stocks were coming off a 15.5% or 15.5% plunge in May. However, as trade tensions between China and the U.S. ratcheted up, investors turned their eyes to the G20 summit, Osaka, Japan, as Chinese President Xi Jinping and President Donald Trump are scheduled to meet and discuss trade. Gold also surged more than 7% in June as the dollar dropped and the Fed opened up the door for a potential rate cut in July. The precious metals gain this month was its biggest since June 2016, when it jumped more than 8%. Oil prices, meanwhile, got a boost amid rising tension between Iran and U.S. tensions rise between Iran and the U.S. Tensions between the two countries escalated after a U.S. drone was shot down earlier this month. Iran claimed the drone was flying over Iranian airspace, violating international law, while the U.S. disputed those claims. West Texas intermediate futures surged more than 9% in June, its biggest one-month rally since January when it rose 18.5%. Dollar Will, you are the one who sent this article in, and you are a SME in this area. You want to speak to any of this? Right now.
I just said in the interest of balance, I need to send it forward because technically, the S&P, that's a historic move right there, and it's been a good month coming off of that negative month in May. There's the saying, "Go sell in May, go away." And let me see, let me throw something up right here. Yeah, so this was I'm looking at a monthly chart of the S&P. This is what everybody's retirement plan is tied to this. So good news on your retirement plan. It should still be looking pretty good. Now I have a stochastic momentum oscillator here down at the bottom. It's pointing north, and this is a monthly chart. And so 80 and above would be oversold. So as far as the monthly chart goes, it's got some some running room. Now, I pardon the pun, technically 80 and above, but we can see historically it's gone as high as 97. So it's got some juice. And even on the weekly chart, it's got juice. It's at, let's say, 58. Yeah. So the momentum is flipped. It's going north. It's got juice. Got room to run. Looking down on the daily. It broke this trend line, but it started going back up. And although this daily is, pointing down a little bit, but, as long as it keeps making higher high, and the weekly and monthly, as I just showed just got juice, we should maybe in the next week or so, we might be making a new high, and it could go up another leg, which, easily could be another 10% higher. So we'll see. It's kind of too early to tell, but I'll say this run started around Christmas Eve, as we know, and that's about 6 months ago. Okay, and that was about 6 months ago, and I have here showing the relative strength of various asset classes. You got bonds, currencies, banks, building and construction, materials, metals, gold, precious mining, gold, precious metals, and alternative energy. And relative strength, again, 80 and above is overbought. And what that means is that's about when things could that suggests that you could have a pullback, not necessarily a reversal, but a pullback. But a pullback could become a reversal. But we're not even technically, pardon the pun, we're not in the danger area. So maybe next week it'll be around 80, but right now it's not. Well, my page decided it wanted to reload. Okay. Oh, I guess it just updated. So even now with the update, it's not at 80. So going into the 4th of July weekend, it's no reason to say that that we're in any danger. But we are at a crucial technical area for we're close to one on gold, and we're at the point for the S&P and the Dow. So the question is how much higher before the danger? We're definitely in that area. So I would say, just being as a chart reader, as long as it keeps making a higher high here. So now I would take this and move it here. As long as it keeps making a higher high, and if it goes beyond here, it could go to the next extension above here. So that could be, like I said, easily another 10%. So all systems are good, but this is still not something you want to sleep on, because we are at anytime you hear things like all-time highs, you're at I guess the maximum good, okay, the best it's ever been. How long can it keep running at that level? So this is not something that you want to set on autopilot and walk away from. So as long as it's making a higher high, you want to pay attention. And also, it didn't take out, encroach upon this prior high. So this prior high, which was functioning as resistance, now served as support, because when the price had its decline, it didn't drop below this prior high. So that established this prior high as the new support. And so as long as this keeps going higher, that's good. And as far as the weekly and monthly goes, the momentum is pointing up and nowhere near 80. So that's that. And let me see, when did I want to get this date for when so this was the 26th. No, that was the 26th of June. I'm trying to see when in May. Oh, so all of this was June 3rd. Wow, okay. So we had this. Now, also what's encouraging again was we had this nasty decline in May, and then the market recovered and made a higher high. So it rendered all of this meaningless in terms of a downtrend, because it's established a higher high, and we're marching even higher for now. So the trend continues until it stops. I want to see from May, if I can. Let's see. Just trying to get out. What was that? May 1st. I'm just trying to see overall from that high to now. Where do we stand? Okay, so you got, of course, gold. That's been the star of the story. Okay, and I don't know what total systems is. And then we got retail bringing up the rear. So retail has still been suffering there. And looking at it in terms of sectors, we got the healthcare sector going strong, and materials, utilities still hanging in there, and consumer staples. Now, this is the area where we pessimists are, saying that folks should be looking at. So it's not, healthcare has probably been the best performing sector, say, for the last decade. Okay, and it's taking its place back at the top. And energy is, doing better, even just to be down 3% since May 1st. That's not bad at all. But we'll see how it goes with the talk of this rate cut, which I don't think it's going to happen, because the dollar is the dollar is trying to find a bottom. So the whole story is the dollar going to become bullish, or is it going to continue falling? And everybody's got their opinion on that, but my view is that the dollar is falling, approaching a 62% retrace, and that's a common decline in Elliott wave theory, and Fibonacci retrace is 62%. So that's kind of where we are with the dollar. We'll have a better take on that in the next 2 weeks. I expect next week the market those industries in the S&P are going to continue to rise to get to that 80% overbought this level. There's no that 80 value on the relative strength index. that I showed here, it's going to keep going to get to the 80. There's no reason why people would stop buying now. It's going, why wouldn't these sectors continue to go towards his typical overbought levels? So, but beyond that, we'll see what the story is with. If I would say the two most important things that people should pay attention to in the next week or two is gold and the dollar. The gold had a pretty significant move that I have a I'm not even gonna get that. I have a paper trading account. The move in gold in this futures paper trading account is like it's stunning. We talk about like $250,000 with a small amount of money. I'm like, oh God. I'm trying to I'm trying to get my game tight on futures, y'all. I'm not a futures trader. Not yet. Let's see. I want to show the longer to get some of this crap off of here. I can't get all the crap off. I got crap on every view. Okay. What I want to show is I go to weekly. Dollar had been going sideways gold had been going sideways for a long time, and it broke above it.
You said dollar.
I'm sorry,
you
gold.
said dollar going sideways. You said dollar going sideways. I thought you was going crazy for a second.
So we are from the decline in 2011, to 2015, December 2015, gold had been going sideways until this month. Let me zoom in. Until this month. So during this period, the bulls and the bears were both right. Okay, I was I remain bearish on gold, although it's making this pretty violent move. So it broke above this prior high from July of 2016. So we're talking 3 years ago. Gold took out a peak from 3 years ago, and most of us technical traders thought this was the high from the recoil or from its low, and then it just obliterated that, since April, but mostly since May 20th. Okay, mostly since May 20th. This move right here just freaked everybody out. So this red line here represents a 50% retrace. I think it's, let me see. I got two of them on here. Let me see which one it is. And the significance of the 50% retrace is in Elliott wave theory, prices retrace on ABC patterns, and it's this top red line. And so structurally, although gold is making this powerful move, it's really not out of the woods in terms of the script for a continued downturn until it goes, I would say, above this 50% retrace. And then when it's has a pullback, we'll see whether that pullback grows into a reversal. Okay, so that's where we are with gold. So the jury's still out, but we can see here on the weekly chart, and to see this stochastic here is at 74. It's got room to run. It's not at 80, so there's no reason why gold can't even continue strong into the 4th of July as we approach the 50% retrace mark. So that's what I say for the next 2 weeks. The story is going to be gold taking all of the other metals with it towards this 50% retrace line. So you're going to hear good things about silver and copper and gold and the euro and energy all kind of trade opposite the dollar. So the dollar seems to have a little bit more to go to fall, and so that means that energy and metals are going to go. should have more room to run, and that corresponds with the S&P 500 and the Dow, because those are key players in the as industrial stocks. They're key to moving the S&P and the Dow. So, happy 4th of July. That's all I got.
Okay, that was dope. I think one person in the chat, I think Andy says Amazon and Baba, please. I don't know what Baba is. Baba Tunde?
Does he mean Alibaba?
Okay. Yeah, Alibaba would make sense. I don't think Baba Tunde is traded on the market, at least not in this region.
I think you had did he say hold the thought for Amazon? I wanted to look at this because you brought up Mike's favorite is AMD. And the last time I know he had me look at this, I said I don't know if I would really bet against it, because it would, I want to be against it, but it was moving too strong, and we can see in the last month even AMD has made a new high. It's I think that's an all-time high. Let me see. Nope. Let me see. How close is it to this high from May of 2000? But no, it hasn't even approached these levels. So it's not that far from this March of 2006. It could get there. It should get there. Let me say it should take this one out. It should take this one out. And we're looking at a monthly chart. So, this thing moves slowly. It's not overbought on a monthly chart. And so it looks like it's going to come after. It may come close, real close to this one. This one, I would say, this is dead. This is gone. It's going to get this price. Question will be, is it going to get this one? That's going to be interesting. Let me look on I'm trying to open it up to the biggest view I have. I'm a quarterly chart fan, Yeah, so this goes back into the early 80s. Yeah, it's coming after this. And so it went to the overbought level, dropped, and then flipped positive. Momentum flipped positive. Even on the quarterly chart, it flipped positive. So I expect to see right along with the energy and metals and gold and stuff I was talking about. It looks like AMD gonna take the semiconductors right along with it. Now let's see about Amazon. Be amazing. Let's start with the quarterly and go down. Get some of this stuff off here. Okay. I mean, see, this is like so slow in developing on the every candlestick represents 3 months. Okay, so we are closing a quarter. That's another thing to keep in mind. Let me see: January, February, March, April, May, June. Yes, this weekend closes this quarter. So I'm gonna see Monday if or over this weekend, if these charts look the same. When we, because this is the last trading day of the quarter. So yeah. So January, March, April, May, and June. Right, April, May, June. So this was the second quarter, the end of that quarter. So I'm gonna see over the weekend if the view of these oscillators change or anything like that, especially on the quarterly charts. But we got positive momentum. And not only that, let me go down to monthly. We did kind of make a lower low here, but this momentum flipped. So that might be this. It probably can still go. Might be reversing, but let's look at a weekly. Yeah, see, went higher. This low here is 1872.42, 1875. So it did make a low. This did go lower slightly. Then in this candlestick. So we'll see. It hasn't flipped, but it looks like it's it's on its way. Let's see what the daily looks like. We'll see. Yeah, this one's got negative, but we'll see. Retail. I mean, Amazon is not. I guess they're they're retail, online
To a
retail.
certain extent.
Yeah, to a
They
certain.
would be considered e-commerce. They would be considered e-commerce, but I guess you can consider them brick and mortar if you include Whole Foods.
But I don't know. That's a good question. What percentage of Amazon is Whole Foods? Does it is it a big enough percentage that we should not that it's not proper to see Amazon as I still see them as principally online and not brick and mortar. I mean, does the Whole Foods acquisition change the nature of the thing? that I don't know.
I think I think when they do the numbers, they include Whole Foods as well. So last time I checked, that's what they did. But Whole
Yeah,
Foods only has less than 500. Whole Foods only has less than 500 stores. So you're talking maybe the majority of the stores are in these wealthy states. So it's interesting because Whole Foods can survive on its own. It really doesn't need Amazon, right? So them adding to Amazon only seems to really sweeten the pie, not be tell the whole story. If that makes any
right, and
sense.
not to mention when you're talking, it's a difference between retail uh consumer discretion items like Jordans. That's different from say grocery stores, which is a staple. So it's they're in the good brick and mortar. Amazon is in the good brick and mortar because if this economy flips over, Whole Foods is going to make a positive contribution to the sales and to the profits of the company, whereas the online sales division is going to suffer if these layoffs come and people not going online to buy things they don't need. So I think it was a brilliant acquisition because they're naturally in the space of the consumer discretion, which is basically it means stuff you don't need. And so by buying Whole Foods, that got them into the space of stuff you do need for survival, meaning things you need for stuff you don't need for survival versus things you do need for survival. So they're in both sides. So when the retail sector really starts to go through its pains, Whole Foods is going to be a positive, sort of like almost like a hedge, not a completely effective hedge, but it will counteract some of the negative that they're going to experience. Now, what does concern me, again, this is just a daily chart, so it broke the support, and support became resistance, and we'll see what happens. But just as we've seen on other charts, how a momentum indicator flipped and then turned around and went north again, why would that not happen for Amazon too? We'll see. I don't know that it will. We'll just have to watch it and see if it does. So we're trying not to anticipate. You just see what is and you respond to it. So sometimes that's the challenge as a technical trader. We're human. We have our opinions. What we think is going to happen, but when the price action doesn't support that, we have to do what the chart says. So I would say until this low is made right here, it really, breaks goes below this, I would just be in a pause or hold, mode with Amazon. But if the rest of the market is rising, why wouldn't the biggest retailer, why wouldn't Amazon participate in the fund? So I would be on the sideline, but I would watch it. I think Amazon is one of those stocks that it's important to watch whether you own it or not because of their footprint.
Don't forget about Alibaba.
That's is it? It's Alibaba. No, it's Alibaba.
ALI.
Ali. Is this it? Baba? Alibaba. Looks like it.
Yep.
Baba. Okay, what is Alibaba? Okay, this is what you do when you want to know what it is. This is one of my favorite sites, bar chart. You come on over here to profile. I forgot what they are. Are they like are they the Amazon of China?
That's exactly what they are.
Okay.
Yep.
Retail wholesale trading. Well, right, because back when I used to trade, see, I don't trade individual stocks anymore. I buy whole sectors. But when I did used to trade individual stocks, I used to trade, look at Alibaba and what's the other one? China Mobile. Okay, because that was, man, China Mobile, that was good. That's like their, their own wireless thing. So, I got to see some color. I'm a melanated brother. I got to see some color. Then I gotta get some. I hate when they don't go back far enough. Okay. All right. That's, hey, made a higher high at least on the quarter. Let me go back. Let me go down to the weekly. Let me get my okay, so on the daily, we're overbought. You can see the momentum oscillator, took it down to oversold, came back up. We're already overbought again. We'll see how it goes. Now, we just looked at Amazon. Now we're looking at the Amazon of China. And on the, let me go to the weekly. Now, the good news is it is oversold on the weekly and it is flipped positive. So it could go. It could run. So I would say as long as it's making a higher high, you would kind of trail it. It's just like but now it's going down. It's sort of like Amazon. You kind of have to watch this thing. I'd say the weekly looks real good. The weekly chart is encouraging. Now, as pessimistic as I want to be as a technical trader, that is encouraging. This flip positive in an oversold state. That's positive. I mean, that I wouldn't be aggressively going for it, but I tell you what, if I saw a green candlestick and made a high above this red one, it would make me feel more confident. It would make me trust that weekly. It would make me say that this is a lie and this is the truth. So in the next week or two, we should be clear. Or, coming up on what's this? Not Thanksgiving, what am I saying? 4th of July. This, in the middle of the week, we should know what's going on. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we should know either we're gonna go higher or go lower, and then we'll, if it goes, and you can kind of see imaginary kind of support running right here. Let me try. Yeah, seems if that line holds, I mean, until that line is broken, there's no reason to be pessimistic until that support is broken. So, just like we saw on other charts, something took off higher, and technically, let me see, has it flipped negative? Let me see. Look in my information box. Yeah, it has flipped, but I still would say if it stays above that line, it's positive until it's negative. Okay, it's positive till it's negative. So it'll be interesting to watch what happens with Alibaba and Amazon, because they both. I would put a question mark on both of those. Right, right at this moment. It's like if I owned it, I wouldn't sell it, but I would watch this line. If I wanted to get in, if I got in, I would draw a line in the sand and say if it made a lower low beyond below this, I'd get right back out. So caution. I would say caution with this one for me. That would be my opinion. But talk to your financial advisor. I'm just Wilson dude on YouTube. I'm not a financial advisor of any sort. What else we got from the chat?
I think that's about it. I just wanted to use this last 10 minutes before we close out. Wanted to ask Dr. Phoenix, has he ever heard of Smith and Nephew before?
I'm sorry, say that again. What was it called?
You ever heard of Smith and Nephew medical products?
No, not familiar with them. No.
Yeah, I used to work here very temporarily some years ago. I think early in my career, in my IT career. But
Mm-hmm.
they work on I think orthopedics and things like that. Making
They're a device manufacturer?
yeah, they're a medical device manufacturer.
Okay. Orthopedic. Okay, I'm looking at your screen.
Mhm.
Okay. I
Now, would
mean,
you happen to that?
So,
Yeah.
Doc, do you
Go ahead.
invest at all, Doc, in medical stocks?
no, I don't. I don't do investing hardly none. I'm actually looking to get into it. So you gave me a nice little crash course. so, so I let the
Yeah,
subject matter expert speak.
yeah, you work in the number one sector for the last decade. So when you see new devices, new technologies come forward by you working in the field, you're able to know, okay, this particular thing that's coming out is so beneficial that every hospital's got to have that right there. You have special knowledge, so right, you will know the real deal, or something new that's coming out that before other people, because you work there. You know that this particular feature makes a big difference and saves us time and money and extends life and all that. So use your knowledge, when you're picking stuff in your field.
Well, thank you for the advice, brother. I really appreciate it. Uh, yeah, no, I really appreciate the advice. I'll definitely check into it. Like I said, I don't normally do stock investing. So, hey, what you just said right there, I just sit back and let the guys that know more about it, a lot more about it than I do the talking. So, in regards to what Mike put up, I'll say this much about medical devices. It looked like he put up a lot of stuff related to hip replacement. Um, I, Hip replacement is extremely common. I mean, very common, especially in seniors. I mean, the number one cause of hip replacement is falls, and the number one cause of injury for seniors are falls. So it's commonly, especially with women, commonly see hip replacements in seniors. And one of the major complications of hip replacement is that you could potentially have bleeding and infection. So and then a lot of times, sometimes people have, yeah, occasionally people might have a reaction to the actual devices themselves, but in general, hip replacement is one of these things where they've been really looking to streamline because it's just so common. And so, I mean, again, you're finding more things that more materials that are used to make these devices that are far more durable and cause less of a reaction in the body, because again, the body does treat these foreign objects as invaders. So I mean, they do attack them, and sometimes you get scar tissue that forms around these devices and stuff like that. So but I'll in regards to that, I'll just leave it at the fact that I'm not sure what did you exactly do there, Will? I mean, sorry, excuse me, Mike.
I used to work in IT there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
No, I had to look. I had to look some more into
I
him.
have a question, doctor.
What's going on, sir?
I know you work in the medical field. Which common entry is what I would ask the worst a person could suffer in regards to body, like
The worst,
yeah, the worst,
common
yeah,
injury.
but the worst. 'Cause I never really think in my head which one's the much worst injury out of all that a human cannot afford.
I mean, in all honesty, there's no really one. And I mean, I guess if you're in sports, you definitely want to look out for ACL injuries. I mean, those are really difficult to heal from. Most people who usually tear their ACL, they're never the same. Not hip, knee injuries, you know, those are those tend to be somewhat difficult to recover from. But realistically, the worst injuries, because I guess I go back to the knee injuries. Typically in knee injuries, many people oftentimes, especially this is very true of athletes, especially your ball players and running backs in the NFL. Many of them tend to get knee replacement surgery at some point in their life because the cartilage and all that stuff breaks down and causes a lot of issues. So yeah, so I mean, I would just watch out for anything related to ACL, knee injuries, because again, knees are your center of gravity in the body. So knees are very weak to lateral motion, meaning if you hit the knee at a 90-degree angle, very prone to a lot of injury. And that's typically where you see most injuries happen at for athletes and such as that. It's not a frontal type of an injury where maybe somebody just full on hit the knee, but really they came at it laterally from the side, and so that's the knee is weakest at those points. So that's part of the reason why they're so common.
Hey Doc, I got one for you.
Okay.
What's up?
Every trader knows about this company called Intuitive Surgical. You probably know about it. It's a global technology leader in minimally invasive robotic assisted surgery. This company's Da Vinci surgical system enables surgeons to operate minimally invasively through a few small incisions, yada, yada, yada. And so this is that chart. It went from $2 in 1991, and it's in the 600, approaching $600. Now pessimists thought that it was going to fall like the rest of the market. It too made a new high, so it could go higher. So take it, man. Somebody who took that run from $2 up to 600.
Yeah,
they're smiling.
Yeah, no, I agree. The interesting thing about that is that the reason I suspect that they had such pretty explosive growth like that is because laparoscopic surgery, which is the surgeries made with small incisions, is a really fast growing area, and actually that's an area where you're actually seeing some automation too, where you're having robots that are able to do some of those, and they're able to do some of that laparoscopic surgery as well. They have whole residencies and fellowships for surgeons and who want to do that. So I would suspect that's probably one of the major reasons why you saw such a heavy growth with that particular stock.
Well, I remember when they came out, out in the 90s when we were, they were talking about it, and of just like, people are naysayers about many new things. Now people were saying it back then. Oh, a robot doing a surgery? No, get out of here. And so, they
have not been watching movies lately.
Yeah, I mean, that company's been around for a good while. So, they're no strangers, in hospitals or on Wall Street. Everybody knows about them.
You
should see.
Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you should see like GE and Siemens. GE is in America, what Siemens is in Germany, Europe.
Yeah.
They have automated surgical systems in place already. The problem is that they can't get FDA approval or even in-house buy-in because the people who are the boomers who are making these decisions are very apprehensive about it, whereas millennials are pretty much okay with taking that risk.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you said that about the FDA because there are a lot of things that are just sit in the FDA. A lot of a lot of products that are lined up to be evaluated for patents and stuff like that. So again, FDA is just one of those places where you just have hundreds, if not thousands, of products that are just sitting around, waiting to be reviewed for approval. And again, like I said before, one of the physicians that I work with, he's a wound care physician, and he actually designed a product that he's been trying to get through the FDA for the last few years, and he has not had any luck at all because I mean, a lot of this stuff comes down to clinical and human trials, and they need to see how effective these products are in human trials. And so typically you don't go straight to testing out medical interventions or devices or medications in general on humans. They generally have to start small scale with animals and you work your way up. And so, and for the FDA approval, they have to see if it's effective on humans. And for the most part, generally, if a medication is somewhere around 40 to 50% effective on humans, it usually gets approved in that regard. So.
All right. Anybody have any closing thoughts on the panel?
I would like to thank Mike and everybody, Doctor, and I'll get used to everybody's names. And this one the last time y'all see me on the Brain Trust. But I thank everybody for letting me join in. I learned quite a bit. I had probably make a chance to go back to replay to what I missed or didn't understand for better clarity. But this was helpful. Normally I have more questions for you, Doctor, but I think we're gonna wrap it up because I think we're already expanding the time. Because people got to absorb this at the end of the day, and that's
Dr. Phoenix is going to be, he's going to be here with us, regularly. So, he's a source, man. Just we're here, and you're welcome too, brother. Like I said, I'm glad to see you that you joined us, man.
Yeah, really. I did tell Mike that I might have him, or like everybody in the Brain Trust, to jump on one of my next streams. Not this, probably next week, possibly. I'll see.
Okay.
I'm taking a break. Normally I do my shows on Sunday, but I'll talk to Mike offline.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you get on the email chain and just like shoot it that way,
Yeah. Mike, no, I got his email, so I'll shoot him an email.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Well, I'll just close out by saying I appreciate you brothers again Mike for inviting me on. Appreciate you guys for allowing me to speak share what I know with people, with the chat and the listeners. So again, always a pleasure. So again, thank you very much.
I guess my closing thought is, this thing we call the Brain Trust, at least I'll just, my view of it before it became what it is, was that we needed a platform for brothers in the manosphere, who were on all the other panels, talking about the effery, because we all are there too, because human relationships, that's a part of life, a very key part of life. But I found myself getting to know brothers in the chat, and the conversations I was getting into with brothers in the chat was more stimulating a lot of times than what was going on the panel. And so it's like I said, wow, we need a place or a way to showcase, I guess, in more greater dimensions of who we are, and not how we show ourselves and represent ourselves. Sometimes we don't always represent ourselves in the best light. If you catch us on certain panels, people can forget that we have jobs, careers, we have, special areas of specialization. And so the Brain Trust is here to give a more multi-dimensional representation of the Black man in the Black manosphere. That's my view of it. So I'm glad to see everybody here, and brothers is in the chat. If you want to get on the panel, let's scoot over. Any night, just hop on. You don't have to stay the whole show if you don't want to, but this is our space, meaning your space. So embrace it.
Only thing I wanted to say is, hey, Mike, can we shoot Raining Woman? We modded her other channel, but she's on the Raining Woman too. Can we mod that one?
All right.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Hit the like button if you not have already done so. Share the video if possible, and make sure you tune in tomorrow for Black Cultural Intelligence Talk when we talk about Montessori schools.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right. Have a good evening.